The first thing I ever felt was somebody putting a bomb inside my chest. Not a metaphor, not a bad dream. An actual object, cold and heavy and about the size of a fist, pressed into me by a hand that did not shake even a little. I want to be clear that I was not awake for the conversation that led to this. Nobody asked. Nobody filled out a form. Two women broke into a space station, walked past 100 rooms of priceless scientific junk, found the one storage pod with a girl asleep inside it, and decided I looked like a convenient place to keep a planet killer. The one holding the bomb had purple hair and glasses and the calm of a woman putting groceries away. "Time to get up," she said, and then she stepped back to watch, the way you step back from a firework. I would like to report that I woke up slowly and gracefully. What actually happened is that every alarm on that station went off at once, and a spear came down about 4 centimeters from my throat. The spear belonged to a young man in a black hooded coat who looked like he had never once in his life enjoyed anything. Behind him, a pink-haired girl was already shouting at him to stop, which I appreciated because from where I was lying, the vote was 2-1 and I was the one. "She just woke up," the girl said. "Look at her. She has the face of someone who does not know what a door is." Excellent. My first impression on another human being. Nailed it. "She came out of a sealed pod during an invasion," the young man said. "That is not a coincidence. That is also not a reason to stab her." They argued about whether to stab me for a while. I lay there and did an inventory of everything I knew about myself, and the inventory went like this. I knew what a spear was. I knew what a ceiling was. I knew the word coincidence. I did not know my name, my age, my face, my species, or why my chest felt like it had a second heartbeat that was not on my side. "Do you have a name?" the girl asked. I opened my mouth and nothing came out of the drawer. "Okay," she said, and she said it kindly, which is a thing I remember better than most things that happened later. "Then pick one." I picked Lyra. I have no idea where it came from. It arrived the way a hiccup arrives. "June 15th, she said, and stuck out her hand. "Do not ask. That is not the name I was born with. It is the day I woke up. Long story. Grumpy over there is Ren Chiang." "I did not agree to that introduction," Ren Chiang said. "You never agree to anything." Somewhere above us, the station made a sound that a station should never make. Not an alarm. A groan. The specific groan of a very large metal object being asked to do something it was not designed for. "Right," June said, all the brightness snapping off her face like a light switch. "So, quick briefing. The Antimatter Legion is currently crawling all over this station. They worship a god of destruction called Nanook, and their entire job is to make sure nothing exists. There are a lot of them. We are 3 people, and one of us just learned her own name 11 seconds ago." "What is the plan?" I said. "The plan is, we go up." "Up toward the invasion?" "Up toward the invasion," Ren Chang said, and started walking because that is a thing about Ren Chang that took me another 2 hours to understand. He never argues with a bad plan. He just gets there first, so you have to catch up. The Legion, it turns out, is not scary the way a monster is scary. It is scary the way a printer error is scary. Void Rangers, faceless, gray, geometric, all of them exactly the same. All of them moving at the same speed with the same weapon in the same hand. Like somebody copy-pasted a soldier and then got distracted and never stopped. 3 of them came around the corner ahead of us and did not react to me at all. Not aggression, not hate. Just the flat, administrative attention of something crossing a name off a list. Ren Chiang put his spear through the first one before it finished raising its arm. June 15th froze the second one to the floor with a bow made out of ice, which is a sentence I had to say to myself twice at the time. The third one came at me and I realized, with the clarity that only arrives at the very worst moment, that I had nothing in my hands. "Weapon," I said. "I need a weapon." "Grab something." I grabbed something. Here is the part where I explain that this space station belonged to a woman who collected things. By things I mean everything. The hallway I happened to be running down was lined with display cases full of what a museum would call priceless artifacts and what I called, in that moment, options. There was a sword in there. There was a staff that was glowing. There was a little box that was quietly humming to itself in a way that suggested regret. I took the baseball bat. I want to be honest about my reasoning, which was that it was the only thing in the case shaped like a handle. But the second my fingers closed on the grip, I noticed something that I did not mention to anyone for about a week. The handle was warm, not room temperature. Warm, like somebody had been holding it a minute ago, in a sealed display case, on a station where every single person was currently running the other direction. I filed that under things to worry about later, and I swung. The Void Ranger came apart, not dramatically. It just stopped being a shape and started being a smear of black light that folded in on itself and vanished, and the sound it made was the sound of a soda can being crushed in a fist. The hallway got very quiet. "Okay," June said slowly. "So that was a lot." Was that a lot? That was a lot. That was regular person hits a tank and the tank loses a lot. Ren Chang looked at the empty patch of air where a soldier used to be, and then at the bat, and then at me, and I watched him move me from one mental folder into a different mental folder. Rules exist for a reason, he said. Which rule? You are holding an exhibit. The exhibit is holding up beautifully, I said, and I kept it. I never gave it back. 4 days and 1 dead planet later, I was still carrying that bat, and every single time somebody offered me a real weapon, I said no, and I would like the record to show that I was right. The elevator was where things got stupid. June 15th had a key card. June 15th had a key card the way you have a key card, which is to say she had it right up until the exact moment it mattered, at which point she had 2 cameras, a bow, a bag of snacks, and a facial expression. It was here, she said, patting herself down. It was literally here. You dropped it, Ren Chang said. I did not drop it, it left. A voice came over the intercom, thin and desperate and belonging to a man who had clearly not been trained for this. Hello? Hello? This is Greg in monitoring. Is anyone alive? I want to stress that I am asking for professional reasons and not for any other reason. We are alive, June said. We are stuck at the freight elevator. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, I can open that for you. I just need to route around The intercom stopped. It did not cut out. It stopped, the way a person stops talking when something walks into the room. And then the floor shook, and the thing that had walked into Greg's room came down the corridor toward us instead, and I got my first look at what the Legion sends when the copy-paste soldiers are not enough. It was 4 meters of armored horse and torso, a trampler, with a head like a helmet with no face in it, and it did not walk, it accelerated. Ren Chang set his spear. June 15th drew back her bow and shouted at me to get behind them. I did not get behind them. Look, I have had time to think about this. I have had a lot of time to think about this. But at the time, there was a very simple problem in front of me. 2 people had spent the last 11 minutes putting themselves between me and everything on this station. I had known them for 11 minutes. Something in me objected to that arrangement on principle. Rules are meant to be broken, I said, and I ran at it. The trampler and I met in the middle of the corridor, and the corridor lost. I got the bat up in time, which surprised me, and I got my weight behind it, which surprised me more, and the impact went up my arms and into my teeth and rang there like a struck bell. 4 meters of armored cavalry stopped dead. Actually stopped. Its front legs came off the deck. For 1 full second, the 2 of us stood there locked together in a hallway. A monster the size of a delivery truck, and a girl in a coat she had stolen out of a storage pod, and I remember thinking, very distinctly, that I had no idea whether I was strong or whether I had just got angry at the correct angle. Then it swung its head, and I went into the wall. Lyra! Ice bloomed across the trampler's hind legs. Ren Chang came in low and put his spear through the joint of its shoulder, and he did it without any wind-up at all, the way you would post a letter. The thing screamed. And while it was screaming, something came around the far corner at about 100 kilometers an hour and went straight through it. I want to describe this correctly. It was a drone. A cleaning drone. It was a squat little machine with a rotating brush on the front and a polite blinking light on top. It went through an armored war beast at speed. It came out the other side with the beast in 11 pieces, and it did not slow down. Then it turned around and did it to 2 Void Rangers further down the hall. Then it stopped. It made a small chime. It began quietly mopping. Nobody said anything for a moment. What? I said. Was that? Housekeeping, Ren Chang said. That was housekeeping. Freya Space Station has a maintenance system. Ren Chang, that thing has a kill count. Yes. June 15th was already on her feet, dusting herself off. Do not get attached. It does not have a personality, we checked. Come on, if maintenance is out, that means the shield is down on this level, which means the station groaned again. And this time, when it groaned, the whole ceiling above the observation deck flexed inward like a soda can somebody had squeezed, and then a claw came through it. I need you to understand the scale here. The claw was bigger than the elevator. It came through a wall that was designed to hold back vacuum, and it did it slowly, unhurriedly, the way a person opens a bag of chips. And through the tear behind it, filling the entire window, was a thing that the crew would later tell me was called the Doomsday Beast, and that I would privately continue to call the reason I do not sleep well. Okay, June said in a small voice. Okay, that is new. That is not new, said somebody else. That is very old, and it has been following us for 2 stops. She came down the stairs behind us with the confidence of somebody arriving at her own party. Red hair, white coat, an expression of mild professional interest, as if the ceiling of her workplace were not currently being unwrapped by a god's pet. She had a cup of coffee in her hand. She was drinking it. Akari, Ren Chang said, and his shoulders came down about a centimeter, which for Ren Chang is the same as bursting into tears of relief. Hello, everyone. Hello, new person. Akari looked at me over the rim of the cup, and her eyes went to my chest for exactly a quarter of a second, and I understood that she already knew about the thing inside me, and had already finished having whatever feeling she was going to have about it. You held a trampler. Briefly. Briefly is very good. Most people manage 0. She turned to the window, took another sip, and said, in the tone of a woman remembering an errand, the station's main cannon is charged. I need 90 seconds and a clear firing line. And in the meantime, June said, in the meantime, that thing is going to come through the platform, and we are going to be standing on the platform, and I am afraid that is simply the shape of the problem. Getting to the platform took 11 minutes, and I have never forgotten any of them. Herta Space Station is a ring, and the ring was coming apart in sections, and the way you know which section is going is that the emergency bulkheads start closing in front of you instead of behind you. We went through 3 of them with less room each time. In the second one, there was a scientist trying to carry a crate that was clearly more important to him than his own legs. Ren Chang took one end of it without breaking stride, put it through the gap ahead of the man, and then put the man through after it. He never mentioned it afterward. Greg, June said into the comm. Greg, are you there? Greg. Nothing. He is not answering. He may be busy, Akari said. She had not increased her walking speed once. Or he may be in the shelter with the door welded, which is where I told everyone to be. We passed a lab with all the lights on and nobody in it and a chair still turning. We passed one of Freya's puppets standing in an alcove, absolutely motionless, staring at the wall, logged out. And on the last stretch, through the observation glass, I got my first proper look at the thing that had opened the ceiling. Not the claw, the whole animal. It was hanging off the outer hull with the station's own light on it, and it was not moving the way an animal moves. It was moving the way weather moves. It has been following us, Akari said, following my eyes. 2 stops. I want you to understand that this is not an accident, and it is not about you. Feels like it is about me. Everything feels like it is about you when you are 4 hours old, Akari said. Left here. There was a woman already on the platform when we got there. Blonde, in a lab coat with a headset and about 6 tablets floating around her, and she was not running. Chloe, Akari said, you should be in the shelter. I know. Everyone is in the shelter. I know, Chloe said, and did not move, and kept her eyes on her tablets. Somebody has to hold the shield generators on manual or the whole ring depressurizes, and then it does not matter who is in the shelter. I am staying. That was the first time on that station that somebody said something to me that I actually kept. Not the god stuff, not the cosmic stuff. A woman with no weapon and no combat training standing on an open platform with a monster the size of a district coming through the roof, saying somebody has to, in the tone you would use about washing up. Fine, Akari said. Then do not die, because I would have to explain it to your mother. My mother thinks I am on vacation. Then definitely do not die. There was a 5th person on that platform, and I did not notice him at first, which in hindsight is the most auto-con thing that has ever happened. He was standing to one side with a book still in one hand and a cane in the other, an older man in a long coat and round glasses, watching the beast come through the ceiling with the expression of a man watching weather. He looked at me, he looked at my chest. He did not say anything about it. And he did not stop looking either, and I would spend the next several days learning that with auto-con, those 2 things always happen together. Then the Doomsday Beast finished opening the station and dropped onto the platform, and the fight started, and I am going to try to tell this part in order. Ren Chang went first, because of course he did. He got underneath it and drove his spear up into the soft joint where the front leg met the body, and the spear went in about a meter, and he twisted it, and the beast's entire foreleg buckled. I have watched a lot of people fight since then. I have watched generals fight. I have never seen anybody do more damage with less theater than Ren Chang did in that first 4 seconds. June 15th went up. She put an ice platform under her own feet, jumped to it, put another one above that, and kept going. And from 12 meters up, she started putting arrows into the same eye socket over and over with a rhythm like somebody hammering a nail. Come down, she was yelling at it. Come down here. Come down here and fight somebody your own. No, actually, forget that. Stay up there. That was a terrible idea. And I went in with a baseball bat. The first thing I learned is that a creature that size does not have to hit you. It only has to be somewhere, and then be somewhere else. And if you are between those 2 places, that is your problem. It swung a foreleg to reposition, and the wind off it took me sideways into a cargo rail hard enough that I bit my own tongue. The second thing I learned is that it did not care about me at all. That is what got me. It was working. It had come to take this station apart, and it was taking this station apart, and the 3 of us were in administrative delay. Every so often it would notice Ren Chang specifically, because Ren Chang kept putting a hole in the same joint, and it would put a foot where he had been standing and he would already not be there. Chloe shouted something about the third generator and the whole platform lurched, and I found out that the shield we were fighting inside was being held up by one woman with a headset who was not going to move. So I got angry. I got one clean hit, right across the side of the jaw, both hands, everything I had, and the thing's head went sideways and its whole body followed and it slid 2 full steps backward across the platform. 2 steps. I moved it 2 steps. A creature that had eaten the outer hull of a space station like a biscuit, and I made it stumble, and in that exact second, with my arms still ringing, I felt the thing in my chest wake up and get interested. That should have been my warning. It was not. I was having too good a time. 90 seconds is up, Akari said from somewhere behind us, very calmly. Everyone who would like to keep their eyesight should look at the floor. I looked at the floor. The light came down through the hole in the ceiling in a column as wide as a road, and the sound arrived about half a second later, and it was not an explosion so much as the universe clearing its throat. When I looked up, the Doomsday Beast was on its side, and most of the platform was on fire, and Akari was already reloading something. Is it dead? June said. It was not dead. It got one limb under itself, and it turned its head, and it did something no animal should be able to do, which is that it made a decision. It looked past me. It looked past Ren Chang. It picked out the smallest target on the platform, the pink-haired girl who was hanging in the air on a bridge of her own ice with an empty quiver, and it fired. The thing that came out of it was a sphere of purple light, and it moved like a thrown stone. I did not think about it. I want to be very clear that there was no moment of noble decision, no swelling music, no montage of our 11 minutes of friendship. There was a girl who had told me to pick my own name, and there was something coming at her, and my legs did the entire thing without consulting me. I got in front of it, and then the world went white. There was no platform, there was no station, there was no floor and no up and no sound at all, and I was standing in a white space that had no edges, and I was not breathing, and it did not seem to matter. In front of me, very far away or very close, I could not tell which, there was a wound in the nothing, a long golden tear, like somebody had cut the white open, and light was leaking out of the cut, and a voice came out of it. It said, "It is time to set off." It said, "Go and reach that destination." And then it said the third thing. And the third thing is the one I have not been able to put down since. He has already noticed you. I turned around. I do not know why I turned around. There was nothing behind me, and I turned around anyway, the way you turn around in an empty apartment, and he was there. Dark-skinned. Enormous. His body was not finished, or it was finished and then broken, and the breaks were full of moving light, gold running down him like something molten looking for the floor. Behind him there was a fire that did not flicker. And his eyes were open, and they were gold, and they were looking directly at me, one specific person, out of everything that has ever existed. I have been hit by a lot of things since that day. Nothing else has ever gone all the way through. He did not speak. He did not move. He looked at me for what I am fairly sure was less than a second, and in that second I understood, in a way that had nothing to do with knowing anything, that this was the thing the Legion prays to, and that it had just made a note of my face. Then I was back on the platform, and I was screaming, and I could not stop. Here is what it looked like from outside, because June told me later, at 3 in the morning, in a voice she was trying to keep light. She said the purple sphere hit me and did not knock me down. She said it went into me. She said for a moment, I just stood there, and then the thing in my chest opened up. I do not have a good word for what came out of me. Neither does anybody else, and I have asked scientists. The closest I have got is that reality in a circle about 10 meters wide simply stopped agreeing to be reality. The Doomsday Beast, which had shrugged off an orbital cannon, was picked up and thrown across the platform like a bag of laundry. The deck plating peeled. June's ice bridges went to steam. Ren Chang got a wall between himself and me, and the wall did not survive it, and I could not turn it off, because it was not mine. That is the part nobody tells you about having a power. Everybody assumes the horror is that you might use it wrong. The horror is finding out that the verb does not have you as its subject. Then there was a small dry click of wood on metal, and everything stopped. Otto Kahn had walked into it. Straight into the middle of the thing that was disassembling a space station at a completely ordinary pace, with a book still under his arm. He reached out and tapped me on the forehead with the tip of his cane. Not a strike, a tap, the kind of tap you give a vending machine. "It is all over now," he said, and it was. I woke up in the medical bay with a ceiling I recognized, which is a nice change, and a headache with its own weather system. "You are awake," Otto said. He was sitting in the chair beside the bed with the same book, and I got the strong impression he had not turned a page in some hours. "How do you feel?" "Extremely spirited," I said, because apparently that is the sort of thing I say when I am concussed. "That is good." He set the book down. "Thank you for what you did for June. You saved me too." "I put a lid on a pot," Otto said. "That is not the same as turning off the stove." He let that sit for a second, and then he took his glasses off and cleaned them, which I would learn is what he does instead of raising his voice. I am going to tell you something unpleasant, and I am going to tell it to you now rather than in a month when you have made plans. The object inside you is called a stellaron. It is a seed of disaster, not a symbol of one, an actual functioning one, and where they are planted, planets die. It cannot be removed. We tried. Akari tried, I tried, and the Genius Society's own instruments could not get a scan of it that agreed with the previous scan. So take it out anyway, I said. Cut me open. Hand it to somebody with a very thick box. If it comes out of you, it goes into something else, and everything else we could put it into is worse, and you would not survive the removal. Those are the only two facts we are confident about. Then tell me who did it. Otto was quiet for a second. Her name is Petra, he said. She is a Stellaron hunter. There are not many of them, and there do not need to be. They go from world to world putting these things into places, and nobody has ever produced a satisfactory answer as to why. And the other one? The one who opened the door out of nothing? Shadow Fox, younger, better with systems than anybody I have met, and I have met the competition. He put his glasses back on. You will want me to tell you they will be caught. I am not going to. Great. Love that for me. So what happens the next time it does that? Akari or I put it back to sleep, Otto said, and I want to be clear, because you are going to be tempted to trust this. We are not confident that we can do that every single time. That is the whole deal. That is the entire arrangement I got handed on my first day of being a person. There is a bomb in me. It cannot come out. 2 people can probably switch it off, probably, and there is a god who now knows what my face looks like. Okay, I said. Otto raised an eyebrow. Okay? Well, what is the other option? I said. Lie down about it? He put his glasses back on, and I am almost certain he smiled, although with Otto Khan, you can never take that to court. Then a child walked into the room and told me she was 83. Genius Society, member number 83, she said. Freya, that is my station you have been redecorating. She was about 1 meter tall, purple hair in a huge bow, ball joints at the shoulders and elbows, faintly clicking when she moved, and she stood with her hands on her hips in a way that suggested she had practiced it. You are a doll, I said. I am a puppet. There is a difference, and you would not understand it. She waved a hand. I invented age reversal centuries ago. It was tedious. This body is about 70% accurate to me as a child, and before you ask, no, you cannot have one. I was not going to ask. Everyone asks. She turned on her heel. Come to my office. I have something good for you. Then she stopped moving, completely, mid-stride, 1 foot up, like a video that had buffered. My pocket buzzed. There was a phone in my pocket. I had not known there was a phone in my pocket, which tells you the general standard of my self-knowledge at that point. The message said, Hey, it is Freya. I have something good for you. Come to my office right now. I am waiting. I looked at the puppet standing frozen in front of me. I looked at the phone. I typed a question mark. The reply came back instantly. Automatic reply. Hello, I am currently unavailable and will not be contacting you for a while. She is right there, I said to the room. She has over 200 of those, Otto said without looking up. Scattered across the station. She logs into whichever one is closest to the thing she currently cares about. You will find them in corridors. You will find them in the pantry. One of them is in a broom cupboard, and it has been in there for 4 years, and nobody has been brave enough to ask why. I want you to sit with the fact that the smartest woman in that part of the universe had built 200 remote bodies and still could not be bothered to keep one of them logged in for a whole conversation. The office was full of the most expensive garbage I have ever seen, and in the middle of it there was a machine the size of a truck. Right. Freya's voice came out of a different puppet, this one sitting on a desk with its legs swinging. Big project. 4 of us wrote it. If it works, we crack the single oldest question there is, which is where aeons come from. Aeons. Star gods. The big ones. Destruction. Preservation. Erudition. The whole shelf. She leaned forward, and for the first time she sounded less like a bored child and more like something with a very old engine in it. Some of them used to be people. Ordinary, boring, standing in a queue people. And then something happened, and now a species goes extinct when they turn their head. Do you not want to know what the something is? I thought about a golden eye in a white room looking at me. Yes, I said. Actually, yes. Good. That machine has a universe in it. Smaller, customized. I call it the metaverse. Maybe do not call it that. My colleague said the same thing. She sighed enormously. Fine, the simulated universe. Go inside, hit some things, and let us see which of the fake gods notices you first. You will be paid. I have been described correctly as a person who becomes cooperative at the word paid. I walked over to the machine. Going into the simulated universe felt like being unplugged from a wall. 1 second I was in the office. The next second, I was standing in Herta Space Station again, except it was empty, and the light was wrong, and there were a handful of Void Rangers standing around in the middle distance, like extras waiting for a director. Can you see me? Freya's voice coming out of a floating panel. Tap the screen if you can see me. Your body is still in the office. This is a simulation built out of remembrance. It is in beta. Please do not sue me. There is nobody here. There are enough. Now, I need you to play a part. A pause, and I could hear her enjoying herself. You are going to be Zephyr, the Aeon of Trailblaze. Dead god, very popular. Everybody misses him. Go hit some monsters as him, and let us see who comes over to say hello to an old friend. You want me to impersonate a dead god as bait? Correct. For other gods, also correct. Excellent, you follow instructions. That is rarer than you would think. June 15th and Ren Chang showed up next to me about 10 seconds later, which they will both tell you was Freya's doing and which I choose to believe was the simulation's opinion of who I come with. We cleared the floor in under a minute. It was almost pleasant. It was the first fight I had ever been in where nobody I liked could actually be hurt, and I did not realize until years later how much I would come to miss that. Then the last monster fell, and the world changed. The station went black. Then the black went amber, and it started raining metal, actual copper and amber and opal falling out of an amber sky, and out of the ground came a shoulder, then an arm, then a head, a colossus pulling itself up out of the bedrock with a hammer in both hands, and it kept coming until it filled the sky, and it stood there. Preservation. Aegis. He did not look at me. He was not interested in me. He was a wall in the shape of a person, and standing under him was the single most reassuring thing I have ever felt in my life. Nanook had looked at me, and I had wanted to stop existing to make it stop. This one did not look, and the not looking was warm, and I actually caught myself thinking, ridiculously, that as long as that thing was standing there, nothing was going to get through. Then he was gone, and the hammer came down somewhere I could not see, and I was on my knees on the floor of an office with a nosebleed. It worked! Freya was shrieking, actually shrieking. Every puppet in the room shrieked at once, which is a sound I have decided not to describe. Aegis came. Aegis. Do you understand what that means? The simulated Aeons are converging on a fake Zephyr. I have to tell Screwlum. I have to tell Ruin May. Get back in. Get back in. I got back in. I would like it noted that I got paid. The second time nothing happened for a long while. I hit things. Freya piled preservation blessings on me until I was walking around inside a personal fortress, and no god came, and I could hear the enthusiasm draining out of her voice by the sentence. All right, she said eventually. He is not coming. I got excited. I do that. I am shutting it down. You will not feel a thing. We will talk in the real world. The station faded out, and then it did not finish. Fading. I stood in the dark for a while, which was fine, and then I stood in the dark for a while longer, which was not. Freya? He came. Her voice was very small and very far away, and had something in it I had not heard before. No, that is not him. That is a different one. That is… And then Freya was gone too, and the light arrived. I cannot describe him properly, and I have stopped trying. Imagine a person made out of broken mirror. Every feature refracted through a prism into somebody else's face. A crown of 6 rows of jewels. A spread of ice at his back like a flower opening. Remembrance. Fuli. And he looked at me, and my head filled up with other people's lives. I saw Petra come apart into water and run down the drain of a street I have never been on. I saw myself as a screaming newborn holding 2 other newborns, cords still attached. I saw a golden scar across a world, and gold running out of it instead of anything a world should have inside it. I saw myself dark-skinned in a long robe crossing a wasteland, which is not a thing I have ever been. And a voice, one word rolling into the next like water off a roof, said something about a long robe unfurling and a dark skin traveling and threads overlapping into words, and I could not hold on to the end of the sentence because the beginning was already gone. Then he vanished, and I was on the floor of the office holding my head, and Freya was screaming again, this time with joy. That is Fuli. He talked to you. He came over, and he talked to you. He thought you were Zephyr come back from the dead. He holds everyone's memory. He knows more than anybody alive except Logos. Do you understand what you just did? I understand I am bleeding again. Yes, wonderful. Go and stand over there. I need to recalibrate everything. You could give me a little respect, I said. Freya stopped. Actually stopped and turned around and looked at me. You are right, she said. I got carried away. Sorry, you did very well. And then she went straight back to the dials, and that was that, and I have thought about that exchange more than almost anything else on that station. She was completely sincere. She apologized in 3 seconds flat because I was correct and she had somewhere to be. That is the most efficient human interaction I have ever had. My phone buzzed on the way out. Chloe. Thank you so much for helping Miss Freya with the testing. Chloe. It must have been hard. Here is your reward. Please accept it. Chloe. Sorry, I do not know what would be a good reward right now. I will get you a better one next time you visit. Chloe. Please forgive me, and then a little sad cartoon face. I looked at the number attached and I had to sit down on a crate in the hallway. 30 million credits. 30 million from a woman apologizing for being cheap, decorated with a cartoon. I did not know what a credit was worth yet. I knew what an apology was worth though, and I put that one in a pocket I still have. I found Ren Chang at the observation window. I had been circling him for about an hour. Everybody on that station had been telling me what I should do, and he was the one person who had told me nothing, and it turns out that makes a person magnetic. Something to say? He asked without turning around. You do not look like somebody who travels. I am not. Then why are you on a train? He was quiet long enough that I thought I had lost him. Then he said, the Astral Express is not a tour. It is not adventure. The word is trailblaze. It means the unknown, unknown risk, unknown reward, both. That is supposed to be reassuring? The unknown is not worse than the known, Ren Chang said. The unknown is still in reach. It can still be changed. That is more than you can say for most things. I looked out at the black. I am hesitating, I said. Do not use hesitation as an excuse. He said it flatly, no edge on it at all, which is what made it land. The longer you hold a decision, the more of it evaporates. Eventually, you are holding the shape of a decision you no longer have. Thank you, Ren Chang. He nodded once and went back to watching nothing, and I went and found Akari on the platform. So, she said, have you thought it through? Why did you invite me? She did not dress it up, which I respected. The Stellaron in you is the main reason. It is not the only one. She set her cup down. People have been telling you all day that you are special, that you are different, that you have a Stellaron, that you matter. You will notice you have not believed a single one of us. Is it that obvious? It is completely obvious, and it is also correct. Being told what you are is worthless. You will only find out what that thing has cost you, and what it has given you, and who you actually are by going far enough to see the bill. Akari smiled. So, get on. We are leaving. I got on. The Astral Express is not fancy. I want to correct the record on this, because people hear the name and they picture chandeliers. It is a train. It has a chess set nobody finishes, a gramophone, too many plants, and a smell of coffee that is a fixed feature of the universe. The first thing that happened to me on board was that a rabbit told me off. He came up to about my knee, tall hat, red uniform, enormous ears dragging on the carpet, walking upright with his hands behind his back. Looks a bit slow, he said, looking me up and down. Yes, you. Akari told me the situation. Listen carefully, rookie, I will say this once. Lately, a lot of people have been telling you that you are special. This is the Astral Express. Every passenger on this train has a secret they cannot tell you. You are not the exception. You are the intake. Understood. I am the conductor. Pip-pop. Any problems? Come to me. And he waddled off to work with his little legs going, and I stood there and had to physically decide not to pick him up. Otto Kahn taught me the paths on the second evening in the observation car because I asked a question I thought was small. The question was what an aeon actually is. He put his book down, which I have since learned is a serious signal, and he did not answer for a while. There are things in this universe, he said finally, that were ideas before they were beings. Some of them were people once. Then something happened, and now a concept walks around wearing them. He took his glasses off. We call them aeons. There are more than a dozen. Each one is a path, and a path is not a religion. It is a direction. Walk far enough along it, and it changes what you are. Then he named them for me. I am going to write them down the way he said them, because he said them like somebody reciting a weather warning. Destruction. Nanook, the one who had looked at me. Everything that exists in order to end, and he is in a hurry about it, and the Antimatter Legion are his hands. Preservation. Aegis, the one from the simulation. He builds a wall and then he builds another wall, and he has been doing it since before this galaxy had a shape, and nobody knows what the wall is for. The Hunt. Geon. An enormous archer, half man and half horse, with a bow drawn to the full moon and arrows that go across whole star systems, and he only ever aims at things that should not be alive. Erudition. Logos. Otto was careful with this one. He said Logos is a shadow with 2 red points where the eyes go, and that a great many extremely clever people have gone looking for Logos, and that the smart ones came back different and the unlucky ones did not come back. Abundance. Botan. 6 arms and a very kind face. Strike the ground with your staff and the buds come up and the sweet rain falls and your pain and your poison go away. Otto did not say anything else about abundance, and I noticed that he did not. Nihility. Omega. Otto would not describe it at all. He said that people who look at it for long enough stop being able to explain why anything should be done, and that this is not a mood, it is a wound, and that the correct response to nihility is to look at something else. harmony, soma. 3 faces, blue skin made of pieces fitted together, and a voice inviting everybody to the same enormous celebration. Come and be part of the chorus. Everybody's heartbeat at the same tempo. Forever. Elation. Bliss. Otto actually smiled at this one, which worried me more than the others. Court jesters and drunk sailors and a baby laughing in a mirror. Bliss does not want you dead and does not want you saved. Bliss wants the show to be interesting. And ours? I said. Trailblaze. Zephyr. Otto put his glasses back on. Who is dead? Our god is dead. Our Aeon laid the rails and then went out and did not come back and left us the train. He picked his book up again. You will find that this is the only one of them that has ever asked anything reasonable of anybody. I sat with that for a while, and then I asked the question I actually wanted to ask, which was whether the thing in my chest belonged to one of them. Otto did not look up. Yes, he said. Akari poured me a coffee about 4 minutes later. First trip, she said warmly. You should try the local specialty. I brew it myself, I grind the beans by hand, and you will not get this anywhere else once you leave this train. I looked into the cup. The liquid in it was not brown. It was the color of a hole in space, and it had a surface tension you could have skated on, and I am reasonably sure it was slightly convex. I opened my mouth to say yes because I was raised to be polite, apparently, by nobody, in a pod, and I felt the back of my neck prickle. Otto Kahn was sitting on the next sofa with his book. He was not looking at me. He was extremely not looking at me. His eyes were pointed at his page with the intensity of a man defusing something, and every single line of that man's body was saying no. Actually, I said, I am suddenly very sleepy. Coffee this late, and I will be up all night. Something else? Akari looked briefly, genuinely disappointed, which was the worst part. There is juice. June likes it. Help yourself. I went and got a juice, and on the way past the next sofa, Otto turned one page, and neither of us said anything, and a lifelong understanding was formed. I got lost on my own train within 20 minutes, which is a personal record I have since broken. Renchang's door was first. I raised my hand to knock and did not get to the knocking part. Who is there? I have not even knocked yet. When people break into your room enough times, you learn to feel it, he said, in the tone of a man who has moved house for reasons. Come in. His room was a library with a bed in it by accident. Books stacked to the ceiling, screens running data. He did not pause when I walked in, and in the corner, on the floor, a blue mat with one thin quilt and one pillow, arranged with the care of somebody who genuinely does not spend a second thinking about where he sleeps. I said something polite and got out. June 15th's door was next. I knocked. No answer. Now, in my defense, the door opened onto what I can only describe as the inside of a music box. Pink rabbit stickers up the wall, a teddy bear sitting in a chair shaped like a rabbit, a chandelier. And covering the entire far wall, floor to ceiling, a rotating display of photographs, hundreds of them, cycling slowly, every one of them a moment that had actually happened to somebody on this train. 2 cameras on the desk, one pink, one blue. I stood in the doorway of a stranger's bedroom, uninvited, going through her life at a rate of 1 image every 4 seconds, and I would like to say I felt bad about it. What I actually felt was a kind of vertigo, because there were photographs in there of Akari laughing, and Otto asleep with his book on his face, and Renchang mid-sentence looking annoyed, and Pip-Pop in a hat that was not his usual hat. Somebody had been on this train long enough to build an archive of it. Somebody had been keeping the receipts. I found her later in the observation car, which is where June 15th always is, because it is the car with the most window per square meter. You are here, she waved a camera at me. We are about to jump to the next stop. Are you excited? Oh wait, this is your first one, so it should be double excited. I am ready, I said. I am ready. Great, very energetic. She nodded with enormous satisfaction. I was like that on my first jump too. I am much calmer now. You are calmer now. I am significantly calmer. She said this while holding a camera in each hand and vibrating slightly. Once you get used to it, you will be a reliable, mature passenger, like me. The jump warning came on and we sat by the glass. Outside, the stars pulled themselves into a long golden shape that looked for about 3 seconds like the spine of an enormous whale swimming beside us, and I put my hand up against the window without deciding to. Trying to catch one? June had leaned in over my shoulder, very close, close enough that I got a lungful of something sweet, like the inside of a bakery, and I stopped functioning for a moment for reasons I did not examine at the time. I did that too, she said, dropping into the seat next to me. Except I did not catch a star. I caught a lamp. A lamp. When I woke up out of the ice, the first thing I saw was a light, so I reached for it. It was the ceiling fixture in this exact carriage. Everyone was standing around watching me do it. She laughed. It was so embarrassing. There was something wrong with the laugh. It arrived on time and it was the right shape and there was nothing behind it. Out of the ice, I said. June. Before the express fished me out, she said, still smiling, still looking out the window. I was inside a block of ice, drifting, in space, for an unknown length of time. That is the whole file. There is no more file. I did not say anything. I do not remember what happened before. I do not know who I am. I do not know what my name was. I do not know where I came from, or what I was doing when it happened. She shrugged, and the shrug was worse than the laugh. June 15th is not a name. It is a date. It is the day they got me out. That is genuinely all I have got, so I put it on the front of me like it is a name, and I keep going. And there it was. I had spent the entire day being handled. Careful people, careful voices, everyone deciding how much of my own situation I could be told at once. And here was the girl who had told me to just pick a name, who had made all the jokes, who had put herself between me and a monster inside 10 minutes of meeting me. She had been walking around with the exact same hole in her the entire time. Nobody had bothered to be gentle about it because she never gave anyone the opening. I did not promise her anything. I want to be clear about that because it would have been very easy and it would have been very cheap. I did not say we will find out who you were. I did not say I will help you. I said, do you want a juice? She looked at me for a second. Then she grinned, and this one had something behind it. Obviously I want a juice. It is my juice. Passengers. Pip-Pop's head appeared at knee height. Sit. Hold on to something. The Astral Express jumps when it leaves Herta Space Station airspace, and I am not scraping either of you off the ceiling again. Again? I said. Do not ask him that, June said. 3, 2. And the train went sideways out of the world. The planet was called Jarilo 6, and the first thing I want to say about it is that we could see the problem from orbit. 12%, Akari said, reading off the console. That is the habitable surface. 12%, and shrinking. The rest was white, not clouds. Ice all the way to the Terminator line, a whole world locked under a lid. There is a Stellaron down there, Otto said quietly. Everybody looked at him. He was standing at the window with his hands behind his back. 700 years ago, the Antimatter Legion came to this planet and set the surface on fire, he said. Then the fire stopped, and the cold started, and it has not stopped since. That is not weather. That is a Stellaron sitting in the ground, doing exactly what a seed of disaster does, taking whatever a world is made of and turning it into the thing that kills it. I felt something in my chest sit up and pay attention, and I did not enjoy it. So there is one down there, I said, and there is one in me. Yes. And the one down there has been eating a planet for 7 centuries. Yes, Otto said, which is why we are stopping here, and why I would like you to stay on the train. I did not stay on the train. Jarilo 6 at ground level is a joke with no punchline. It is white in every direction. The wind arrived sideways carrying small pieces of the previous mountain. And about 90 seconds after we stepped off the express, I discovered that June 15th's tolerance for cold is not a personality trait. It is a load-bearing structural feature. She was fine. I could no longer feel my own face. It is bracing, she said. It is hostile. It is bracing and hostile. Those are compatible. Then a snowdrift about 3 meters to our left said, "Oh, thank the gods, customers." Ren Chiang had his spear through the drift before the sentence finished. There was a shriek, and the snow came apart, and out of it came a man in a green coat with turquoise hair and a grin like a discount coupon. Whoa, whoa, friend, friendly, extremely friendly. He held both hands up while backing out of spear range with the smoothness of long practice. Mikko Halonen, merchant, guide, information broker, and the only man on this planet who is happy to see you. You were buried in the snow, I said. I was resting. You were buried in the snow face down. I was resting intensely. He dusted himself off, entirely unembarrassed, and looked us over the way a man looks over a delivery. Now, you are not from around here. I know that because there is no around here. There is one city on this rock and everybody in it is miserable in a way I would recognize. So you fell out of the sky, which makes you the most interesting thing to happen since the last time something fell out of the sky, which was bad. Follow me. I will get you inside the wall. What do you want? Ren Chiang said. Eventually, money, Mikko beamed. Right now, company. He walked us for 3 hours through a blizzard, and I have to give him this, he was good at it. He knew the ground. He talked the entire time, mostly nonsense, occasionally something extremely useful buried in the nonsense so smoothly that you did not notice you had been given a briefing. He told us about the fragmentum, which is what happens when a Stellaron gets bored, patches of the world where reality goes soft and things come out of the softness. He told us about the wall. Then a Silvermane patrol came over the ridge and Mikko sold us out in under 4 seconds. I want to be accurate about the timing because it was genuinely impressive. The lead soldier said halt. Mikko said, "Officers, thank goodness. These 3 are with me, and I have grave concerns about all of them. You absolute Business, Miko said, already jogging backward into the snow. Nothing personal. See you inside. The Silvermane guards were not, individually, a problem. There were 6 of them, and we went through them the way you go through a queue, and June 15th got up onto a rock and put down an entire rain of arrows, a proper curtain of them, enough to pin a whole squad. A man walked out of the arrow storm and swatted them out of the air with his hand. Not a shield, not a weapon, his hand. He crossed 20 meters through incoming fire like a person crossing a room in light drizzle, and then he stopped in front of his own soldiers and stood there, and standing behind him became, visibly, the safest place on the planet. Why did that not work? June said, in a very flat voice. He was enormous and blonde, and about 25, and he had the specific stillness of somebody who has never once in his career had to shout to be obeyed. Commander Conrad, one of the guards said. These 3 are working with the blue-haired swindler. We are not working with the blue-haired swindler, I said. The blue-haired swindler left us here roughly 90 seconds ago at a dead sprint. You can still see the footprints. Follow the footprints. We pulled him out of a snowdrift, June said, going red. We were nice to him. He used us as a distraction. Do not let that man's face do the thing his face does. Citizens have a right to defend themselves, Conrad said. But not from the guard. Take them in. We are not citizens. That stopped him. He looked at us properly for the first time, and I watched him work through it, slowly and thoroughly, the way he does everything. He looked at the cut of Renchang's coat. He looked at June's boots. And then he looked at the fact that all 3 of us were standing in a wind that could strip paint, in clothes that would not have kept a person alive for one night out there, and were not currently dying. Show him the pictures, I said. June 15th got it instantly. She unclipped a camera and walked right up to a man who could catch her arrows bare-handed and held up a photograph. It was Gerilo 6 from orbit. The whole planet in one frame, a white ball with one small dark bruise on it where the city was. Nobody said anything for a while. That white ball, one of the soldiers said. That is here? That is our home? They used to say visitors came from up there, another one said, before the cold wave. Nobody has crossed the snow since. Conrad looked at the picture for a long moment, and I watched a man decide that this was above his pay grade with visible relief. You will come with me to the Supreme Guardian, he said, and his voice had changed. Outsiders, Belobog is behind that curtain of snow. Follow. I have seen a lot of cities since. Belobog is still the one I would draw if you asked me to draw a city. It is warm. That is the first thing, and it is the whole thing. You come in out of a wind that has been trying to kill you for 3 hours, and the air changes, and it is not that the air is hot. It is that somebody built this place specifically so that it would not be cold and never stop maintaining it. Copper radiators along every wall, grates in the pavement breathing white steam, chimneys cutting the sky into strips. The shop windows full of mechanical toys, wind-up things with brass gears, and children with their faces against the glass. 700 years of somebody choosing, every single day, to keep the heating on. This is Belobog, Conrad said, the last bastion of humanity. The last what? June said. He took a breath, and then he started reciting, and I mean reciting, in the flat wooden voice of a person who learned this at school and has never had a personal thought about it since. 700 years ago, an extraterrestrial monster set the planet alight. The Earth was scorched, filled with burning flame and rolling smoke. At the critical moment of life and death, a cold wave descended. The wind came without warning. The invading legion was buried by the blizzard, and only Belobog remained. The steadfast city builders razed the city, and under the protection of the Aeon of Preservation, Belobog, though battered by wind and snow, is warm forever. He talks funny, June whispered. That is not his voice, Renchang said. He is quoting something. Then why did he tell us all that? Because you asked, Conrad said without turning around, and there was the faintest possible amount of reprimand in it, and June 15th made a small noise and went quiet. I want to flag something here because I did not flag it at the time, and I should have. Read that speech again. A monster set the planet on fire. Then, at the critical moment, a cold wave descended and buried the invaders. Everybody in that city had been taught, for 7 centuries, that the endless winter arrived to save them. Hold on to that. It comes back. Aegis Fortress sits in the middle of the city like a fist. It is the headquarters of the city builders, who Conrad described as humanity's saviors, in a tone with actual warmth in it. They were the ones who built here before the cold wave, back when everybody thought they were fools for putting a city in the coldest place on a warm planet. History had proved them right in the worst possible way, and the city had never got over the gratitude. The Supreme Guardian's office was at the top, and there was already an argument happening in it when we walked in. But a sacrifice like that is meaningless. You cannot. A young woman in silver-white armor, standing very straight, with her fists closed at her sides, silver hair pulled up. and a face doing the extremely specific work of a person who is furious and is not going to be allowed to finish a sentence about it. You may go now, Anya. We have visitors. The woman on the dais said it without looking up. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. It landed like a door closing. Anya bit down on whatever the rest of that sentence was until her lips went white. Then she bowed her head. Yes, mother, she said, one word at a time, and walked out, and on her way past, she looked at me. Just for a second. It was not a friendly look, and it was not a hostile one. It was the look of somebody checking whether a witness had seen it too. Yulia Croft was blonde and composed and had the kind of presence that rearranges a room's furniture without touching it. I am Yulia Croft, guardian of Belobog. Tell me why you are here. You are not going to ask whether we are who we say we are, I said. Do you want me to doubt you? Are you that unsure of your own story? She almost smiled. No, I do not doubt you. I can see you are not from this world. The city builders have had no word from the sky for 700 years, but I have never once believed there was nothing up there. Speak, I am listening. We are here to trailblaze, I announced. There was a pause. Nobody knows what that means, June hissed. Ren Chang stepped in front of me the way you step in front of a child at a bakery counter. We are here for something called a stellaron. It falls into worlds. Where it lands, disaster follows. Many of the planets we have passed through have been poisoned by one. He paused. You mentioned the Legion invasion. Shortly after they arrived, the cold wave began, and during the cold wave, a corrosion of the space around this planet began, which you call the fragmentum, correct? Yulia's expression changed for the first time. Correct. The fragmentum is what a stellaron does, June said. The specific disaster is different everywhere. The fragmentum is always the same. You have a way to seal it. We have the means to handle it, Ren Chang said. And I want to be honest about the next 10 seconds because everything that happened afterward was in them and I missed it entirely. Yulia went quiet. Her eyes sharpened. And when she spoke again, her voice was warm and generous and completely correct, and every single word was the right word. Then I believe you. If our situation is caused by this stellaron, you are the hope Belobog has waited 700 years for. We will give you every assistance in finding it, she smiled. But it is late. I will have you placed in the best hotel in the city. Come back tomorrow at noon, and we will discuss it properly. June 15th let out a breath. Well, she said on the way out. That went great. She was so reasonable. Said Ren Chang. The Goethe Hotel was genuinely lovely, and I slept for 4 hours. Then I dreamed, and in the dream, I was not myself. I was standing at a window at the top of a fortress, looking down at a city, and there was a sound in the room, not a voice. Something under a voice, a low intermittent murmuring that came and went like a bad radio, and it was not speaking any language, and I understood it perfectly. It knew what she wanted. It said so. It said it could give her that. And I heard my own mouth in somebody else's voice say, yes, of course I understand what you are saying. Do not worry. I have a way. I woke up with my hand on my chest, and the thing under my ribs was warm. It had been listening to a conversation. Somewhere in that city, another one of these things had been talking, and mine had leaned in. I got up and got dressed and was reaching for the door when somebody kicked it in. I should back up about 12 hours because I skipped the part of the day where Belobog explained itself to me, and I did not listen. After we left the fortress, Conrad walked us around and pointed at things. He showed us the ice sculpture in the main square, which is half a crystal and half a stack of industrial gears welded together, and which he said represented the spirit of the city better than anything else. He warned us about the alley beside our hotel, where the fragmentum had come up through the ground inside the city walls and the street had been sealed off. The corrosion has reached the inside of the city, Ren Chang said. That is very bad. Yes, Conrad said. We are fighting it. Goodbye. Under the sculpture, there was a small woman in guard uniform giving a history tour to about 9 children, and doing it with the crisp enthusiasm of somebody who volunteered. Irina Ivanovna, intelligence officer, Silvermane Guard, and your guide for the Belobog Historical Walk. Call me Ira. Sister Ira, chorused the children. Sister Ira, I said. She went pink. Please, adults should not copy the children. June 15th dragged me away by the sleeve. Your repeating thing is happening again. Where did you even learn that? Then we found a heater standing in the middle of the street outside a machine shop, which was strange because it was outside. Why would you put a heater outdoors? June said. That is the opposite of a heater. Maybe they are trying to warm up the cold wave, I said. So the city builders are just stupid? You two have been standing there discussing a broken radiator for 4 minutes, said a voice, and a blonde woman came out of the shop with the expression of somebody who had been listening for at least 3 of them. Lynx, I own the machine shop. If you have anything broken, bring it to me, although I cannot promise I will find it interesting. She crouched down and rapped the casing with her knuckles. Underfloor heating. They are everywhere in the district, and the one you are standing on is broken, and I have not got round to it. All of it runs on geomarrow. It is a mineral. It is only found here, and it powers absolutely everything. City heating, the clock on your wrist, all of it. Where does it come from? Underground. She said it lightly, and it landed heavily. Mining teams down in the underworld dig it out, and it comes up through the pipes. The same pipes take surface goods back down. Belobog is 2 discs stacked on top of each other. The overworld does administration and trade. The underworld does energy and extraction. I looked around at the warm streets and the shop windows full of clockwork toys, and I did not ask the obvious follow-up question, which was, so what does the bottom disc get? And that is on me. On the way to the hotel, we passed a crowd of people crying in the street, old people mostly. Their homes were on the far side of the barricade, in the sealed alley, in the part of the city that had quietly stopped being part of the city. The guard would not let them through. There was nothing to let them through to. Can the soldiers hold the fragmentum back? I asked. No, Ren Chang said. As long as the Stellaron is active, the corrosion spreads. They can clear out the monsters. The monsters come back. Tomorrow, June said, and her jaw had gone hard. Tomorrow we talk to the Guardian and we go and find it and we finish this. And then I stopped, because there was a bin. June said. What are you doing? There is a trash can. Yes, there is. That is where the trash goes. I opened it. It was full of trash. Right, I said, and closed it, and moved on to the next one, and got physically hauled backward by the collar. We are personal guests of the Supreme Guardian, June hissed. If somebody photographs you going through the bins at midnight, I will die. I will lie down in the snow and die. I have never stopped doing it. Nobody has ever explained it. I have found some genuinely excellent items. That is the whole of the peaceful part. That is everything Belobog got to be before it stopped being that. So, back to the morning, and the boot going into my door. Anya Croft, acting commander of the Silvermane Guard, in the name of the Amber Lord, by order of the Supreme Guardian, and she said her own mother's name without a flicker in her voice. Yulia Croft, I am arresting 3 infiltrators for incitement to rebellion. Do not resist. Come with me. Wait, June said. Wait, no, that is not what we agreed. She said discuss important matters. Those were the words. This was planned, Ren Chang said, with no surprise in his voice at all. It was planned last night, before we finished the meeting. There were about 20 guards on the stairs and in the lobby and out in the street. They had rifles. Anya had a spear and a completely blank expression, and behind that expression was somebody's whole life. Observe one thing, Ren Chang said conversationally, and infer the next. Is this a word game? I said. Are we doing a word game right now? Shh, June whispered. It is an old express code. When he gets to one, run. The Emperor's command is absolute. Borrow a city. Ren Chang shoved June's head down and I put the bat across the nearest helmet. The lobby came apart. Ren Chang swept low and took 7 men off their feet in one motion. The rest went for their rifles, and June froze the rifles, actually froze them, in their hands, and then she jumped for the barricade at the end of the street and stopped at the top of it long enough to turn around and pull a face at a squad of armed soldiers. I am going first, everybody. And then we went over the barricade into the sealed alley, into the fragmentum, into the corroded part of the city that everybody in Belobog had been taught since childhood to never, ever enter. Behind us, I heard Ira say, appalled, they went in. And I heard Anya say, either extraordinary confidence or suicide. Mother was right about them. The fragmentum from the inside does not look like a disaster area. That is what makes it so bad. It looks like a street. It is your street, with your shops and your washing lines, and the light in it is the wrong color, and the geometry has been very slightly edited by somebody who did not care whether you noticed. Things live in there. They are made out of the same edited geometry, and they do not have faces, and they keep coming, and they will keep coming forever, because the thing that makes them is buried under the planet, and nobody has ever seen it. We went through them fast. I want to be honest and say the fighting was easy, and that the hard part was the laundry. There was a line of laundry strung between 2 windows in a dead street inside a monster-filled void, still hanging there, 7 years frozen, and nobody was ever coming back for it. They did not follow us in, June said, when we got a clear stretch. Ha, see? Freedom. They are a century too early to catch us. 3 shots went into the ground at Ren Chang's feet. He had already thrown his arm across June's chest, guards on both balconies, rifles down on us from above, and Anya walking up the middle of the road with her spear. Underestimated, she said. The fragmentum took this place, yes. It is still Belobog. It is still our home. The guard knows every corner of it. What is your problem? June said. Genuinely. We got here yesterday. What did we do? The Guardian investigated your background. Anya's hand was on her hip, and her chin was up, and her voice was a recital, same as Conrad's, same wooden reading of somebody else's sentence. She called me last night. She told me you had lied to her. that your identities and your purpose are fabricated and that your intention is to undermine the city builder's authority over Belobog. Your mother is a two-faced old witch. Everything went very still. I watched Anya's face come apart and put itself back together in about half a second. Insulting the Supreme Guardian in public, she said, and now her voice was shaking and she was speaking each word separately to keep it steady. Only adds to your crimes. Drop your weapons. Surrender. June, Renchang said quietly. No more talking. One thing is clear. Whatever else happens, we cannot let them take us in. The second fight went the way the first one went, which is to say quickly. June put a shield up over us, and after that it was housekeeping, and I mean that in the Herta Space Station sense. Within about a minute, Anya had one soldier left standing. She put her arm out and moved him behind her. Fall back, she said. I will handle these villains myself. One girl with a spear, against 3 people who had knocked a doomsday beast over. I had time to think, distinctly, that this was going to be sad. She was not sad. She was extremely good. She fought like somebody who had trained every day since she was small because being adequate had never once been an option in her house. She held all 3 of us for a genuinely embarrassing length of time. Then she started losing. Then she stopped losing because she stopped fighting fair and started fighting for the terrain. She pulled us. That is the only way I can describe it. She gave ground on the left and did not give ground on the right, and we followed the gap the way you do. And by the time I understood the shape of the street, we were standing in a courtyard with one exit and there were rifles on every roof. I did say, Anya said, breathing hard, that the guard knows every corner of it. And then somebody dropped a smoke bomb into the middle of the courtyard from above, and a familiar voice said, Sorry, coming through, do not mind me. Smoke everywhere. Rifles going off into nothing. And through the smoke, a hand grabbed my collar, and Mikko Hallinen's face appeared about 10 centimeters from mine, delighted. Hello again. You sold us to the guard yesterday. I did. Business. He was already dragging me. And today I am stealing you back from the guard. Also business. I contain multitudes, friend. Where are we going? Down, Mikko said. Sorry about this next part. I felt the needle go into my neck. I woke up in a clinic with a low ceiling and no windows, and the first thing I heard was somebody getting told off. Tell me the truth, Mikko. What are you planning to do with the girl from the overworld? Deal with her along with the others. Find a moment. Send them all back up. Wait. A pause. How do you even know about? Do you think you can keep anything from me, Mikko Hallonen? The woman said it without heat. She did not raise her voice. She did not sharpen it. She just laid the sentence down in front of him and let him look at it, and I heard a grown man deflate like a punctured tire. I did not mean to bring her. The smoke was very thick. I could not see. I do not know how she ended up in the bundle. I have no idea what you are doing up there, and I have stopped asking. Why do you get involved in this at all? Are you not conspicuous enough already? Do you need wildfire on your back before you are satisfied? Hey, I look after my friends. These people helped me. I repay a kindness. Is that your excuse for letting them wander around loose down here? There was a silence with a lot in it. Ah, Mikko said. An accident. Purely an accident. I will go and collect them all right now. And he was gone, at a speed I would later learn is his only real superpower. The woman turned around. Blue hair, doctor's coat, and a tiredness in her that had clearly been there long enough to become part of her posture. She helped me sit up before I asked, How do you feel? Anything wrong with your body? Everything, I said. Everything hurts. My back specifically feels like it was folded. That is an accurate description and not how normal people talk, she said, and almost smiled. Svetlana, I run the clinic. You are underground now, in the underworld, and I should tell you before you go anywhere that it is not the same city you were in yesterday. Where are my friends? She pointed at the door with her chin. The black-haired boy woke first. Mikko took him. The loud girl woke up and left immediately, and is somewhere in the neighborhood being loud. And the little one in the Silvermane uniform disappeared the moment Mikko went out the door. Wait, Anya is down here? Somebody grabbed a guard commander in the smoke and brought her along, Svetlana said, in the flat voice of a woman who has already run all the way to the end of that thought and did not like where it went. Yes. Rocktown. I want to describe this properly because I only get one go at it and everything after it depends on my getting it right. There is no sky. That is the first thing. There is a ceiling of rock a long way up, and hanging from it, everywhere, are chandeliers, and I need you to understand that these are not decorations. Somebody looked at a cavern and decided that if these people were going to live under a stone lid, then the lid was going to have chandeliers on it. That was the last time anybody down there did anything for beauty, and it was a very long time ago, and the crystals are all gray now. The houses are broken, not run down, broken, roofs collapsed and left collapsed, walls that have been patched with sheet metal and then patched again over the patch. Piles of yellow ore stacked in the street the way other cities stack rubbish. And the people. In the overworld, 6 hours earlier, I had watched children with their faces pressed against a toy shop window. Down here, the miners came past me with red eyes and hollow cheeks, and nobody said anything to anybody. It was not misery exactly. Misery is loud. This was the quiet after misery, the part where a place has been like this long enough that complaining has gone out of fashion. 10 years. That is what Svetlana told me. The passages between the tiers had been sealed for over 10 years. The geomarrow went up. Nothing came down. Every radiator on every street in the overworld, every clockwork toy, the lovely warm air that had made me want to sit down and cry with relief when I came in out of the blizzard, all of it dug out of the dark by people whose city had locked the door. Hello? A child in an enormous woolly hat was standing directly in front of me with her hands on her hips. She had come out of a gap between two houses at speed and stopped dead with her boots together, which suggested she had practiced the entrance. You are new. I am Skipper. I am the boss of the moles. This is my gang. We know everything that happens down here, and we do not tell anybody anything unless they are cool. Behind her, two more children of approximately hat height nodded in unison. I am extremely cool, I said. Prove it. I fought a robot last night. Everybody fights robots. Skipper was unmoved. I fought a robot. You are? How old are you? That is not a cool question, said Skipper. I want to say something about those kids, because they are the reason I stopped being able to be neutral about Belobog. They were completely fine. That is the thing. They were filthy and underfed, and they had never once in their lives been outdoors, and they were running a gang, and they had a hideout, and they had rules, and they had assigned each other jobs, and Skipper made the older ones walk the little ones home. They had built an entire functioning society out of a cave and some crates because nobody had told them that this was not enough, and they were happy. The adults down there had the faces of people counting something. The kids did not have that yet. Somebody had bought them 10 more years of not knowing, and every single one of those years had been dug out of a wall by a person with red eyes and a cough. I found June 15th about 15 minutes later, playing hide and seek and losing badly to an 8-year-old in a coal chute, and by then I had traded 3 rounds of it for the location of Ren Chiang. They took him to the fight club, Skipper said cheerfully. The what? The fight club. It is the best thing down here. I have been in it. You have been in it, June said. You are 8. I am not 8. You have been in the fight club at whatever age you are, and I want to speak to somebody's manager. June 15th put her hands on her hips, which is what she does instead of taking a breath. No, right. That is unacceptable. I feel a sense of justice coming on. June, let us just look first. The fight club was in a converted ore hopper, and you could hear it from 3 streets away. Not the crowd. The crowd was normal. It was the announcer, who was operating at a volume that suggested a personal grievance against silence. Brothers and sisters, the next bout is the most thrilling, the most breathtaking, the most spectacular showdown of the entire day. He said that about the last one, remarked a man at the door, to nobody, in the tone of a season ticket holder. A serious and exceptionally talented newcomer, the cold-faced little blue dragon, recommended to us by the handsome gentleman in deep blue. June and I looked at each other. His opponents, a squad of emotionless, unstable machines. Praise be to Volkov. Inside it was hot, and that is the thing that got me. 200 people packed onto scaffolding around an octagonal cage, every one of them straight off a shift, all of them roaring. It was the first noise I had heard anybody in the underworld make on purpose. That is what a fight club is for. Nobody had to explain it. You dig in the dark for 10 hours, and then you come here and shout at something for one. Ren Chiang was in the cage. He was standing very straight with his spear grounded, wearing an expression that could have curdled milk at 50 meters, and he was looking at 2 machines shaped mostly like fists. He had clearly worked out some minutes previously exactly who had entered his name and exactly what that person had been paid for it. He had filed it for later and decided to deal with the robots first. Should we help him? June said. He does not need help. I know he does not need help. That was not the question. We went over the barrier. 2 spectators have entered the ring, the announcer shrieked, and they appear to be fighting alongside the cold-faced little blue dragon. Do not, Ren Chiang said without turning around. Call me that. It is on the board, June said. They have written it on an actual board. The first machine came at me low, and I met it with the bat, and it folded around the impact like a can. The second went for Ren Chiang and got exactly as far as things generally get with Ren Chiang. June put an arrow through a knee joint from 4 meters, which is showing off, and the scaffolding went up like a stadium. 40 seconds. That was the whole fight. Then both machines, lying in pieces on the floor, detonated. I would like somebody at that venue to explain why nobody mentions this in advance. The hopper went white, and the blast went up through the scaffolding, and every person in the front 9 rows learned something about themselves that evening. June had a shield over the 3 of us before I had finished flinching. We came out of the smoke without a mark, into total silence, and then 200 miners lost their minds. A brilliant victory. The winners are the cold-faced little blue dragon and 2 members of the audience. The audience, June said. We do not even get a name. The cold-faced little pink dragon, I offered. Never mind. Terrible. Withdraw it. She turned and then stopped dead. Oh, look who it is. Miko, halfway to the exit, walking very fast. We got him at the door. Ah, it is you. Amazing. I was wondering who was behind me. I thought bandits. I honestly quickened my pace if I had known. You drugged us, Ren Chang said. A precaution. You drugged us and carried us into a sealed district that nobody is supposed to be able to enter. Ren Chang took 1 step closer and Miko's back met the doorframe. So either you are hiding something or you have something you very much do not want us to see. Now here is the thing about Miko Halonen that took me an embarrassingly long time to learn. He does not crack under pressure. He converts. The instant the pressure exceeds the value of the secret, he simply becomes your closest friend, with no transition and no shame whatsoever. All right, I will help you. Free of charge, no strings, wholeheartedly, and I only ask that you do not go around telling people about it. He was already walking. Here is what I will do. I will introduce you to Wildfire. If there is anything to find down here, they are the ones who know. You said we had to win the Fight Club championship to get a lead. Ah. Miko did not miss a beat. Yes. If you win the championship, you become famous, and then Wildfire is willing to meet you. Very efficient. Miko. Very efficient. Wildfire, when we finally found them, were having the worst day of their year. There was a crowd on a high platform in the mining district and a shouting match in the middle of it, and at the center of that was Anya Croft, alone, in a Silvermane uniform, in the underworld, surrounded by armed miners. Ladies, gentlemen, Miko went pale. We absolutely cannot let this escalate. We should… Honestly, June said. I would quite like to watch her have a hard time for a minute. June. I am kidding, mostly. She was already moving. Fine, Ren Chang is right. We do not stand around while somebody gets… And then one of the miners shot her. I saw the whole thing and I still had to have it explained to me. The muzzle flashed. Anya's face did not change, but her weight came back onto her heel about 1/10 of a second before the trigger moved, and then the air in front of her filled with thin blue light, sharp as broken glass, and the bullet came apart into 4 pieces and dropped on the floor. A blue sphere opened in the middle of the air. Something came out of it in a shower of butterflies and welding light, landed between Anya and the miners with a scythe already turning, and the miners left. All of them, instantly, in every direction. Anya, said the woman with the scythe. She had blue hair and a way of standing that dared the room. She was younger than Anya maybe, and she was talking to her the way you only talk to somebody you know exactly how to hurt. I heard a Silvermane guard had come down to the underworld, Alara said. So it is you. What are you plotting, Anya said, by dragging me down here? What are you plotting? Alara's mouth twisted. Listen to that. Does she still think she is the young lady of the house? She folded her arms. Comfortable up there, is it? Do you know what this place has turned into? Have you ever once thought about the lives down here? The Silvermane guard does not sit comfortably anywhere. Anya's voice cracked upward, and it was the first genuine thing I had heard out of her. The guard fights every day. We hold the line against the monsters. We protect Belobog, above ground and below. All talk. What exactly have you protected? Alara took a step in. You pulled every soldier back. You sealed every passage between the tiers. And all of that is to protect what exactly? The city builders? Anya opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The Guardian has her reasons, she said finally to the floor. And I stood there in a cavern under a dead planet and watched a young woman try to defend her mother with a sentence she had clearly used before, and I watched her hear it out loud for the first time. The Great Mine was 2 hours of tunnel away, and Alara briefed us on the walk without once looking at Anya, which took skill because Anya was walking directly behind her. There used to be a lot of mines. Then the fragmentum started coming up through the floor and it ate most of them. This one is clean and it is intact, and that is the whole problem. Every group whose home got swallowed came here. Wanderers, we call them. Too many people in one hole. There is a fight every few days. And this week? This week the first mining team found a seam. Her jaw tightened. Biggest Geomero strike in 30 years. They tried to keep it quiet, which never works. The Wanderers found out and wanted a cut to stay quiet about it. Somebody said the wrong thing. Now there are people under a rockfall. We came into the mine, and the first thing I saw was Svetlana, on her knees on bare stone, with about 40 people around her and 2 hands. She had set up on a tarpaulin between 2 ore carts. No table, no light except what somebody was holding for her. Some of the people around her were bleeding. Some of them were standing there because their husband was still in the shaft. One woman kept asking, of nobody in particular, in the same flat voice, over and over, whether anybody had seen a man in a green coat. Miners team or wanderer? I heard somebody ask her. I did not ask, Svetlana said, without looking up. Hold this. I stopped hesitating at that point. I want to be honest that until then, I had been on a sort of tour. Everything up to that moment had happened around me, and I had been swinging a bat at whatever came into range. This was the first thing I chose. What do you need? I said. Svetlana looked up at me for about half a second, which was all she had. 2 galleries came down. The near one has people in it and the roof is holding. The far one has people in it and the roof is not. She went back to what she was doing. Take the far one. The far gallery was 110 meters of angled shaft with a ceiling that talked to you. That is the thing nobody tells you about rock. It makes conversation, it ticks, and it settles, and every so often something the size of a cupboard lets go behind you, and everybody stops breathing at the same instant, and then keeps working. Ilara went in first because Ilara goes anywhere first. Ren Xiang propped what needed propping with a spear that was not designed for it, and I found out that whatever the Stellaron had done to me, I could lift a beam that 3 men could not. That is the single most useful thing it has ever done for me. I say that having hit a god's pet with a stick. We got 4 people out of the far gallery. 3 of them were miners, and 1 of them was a wanderer, and I only know that because they told each other while they were both lying on the same tarpaulin waiting for Svetlana, and neither of them had the energy left to make it into an argument. We went back in for the 5th, and he was already gone. June found him. She did not say anything about it for the rest of the day, and then she said something about it at 2 in the morning, and I sat up with her. Somewhere in the 3rd hour we found out why the deep section had gone quiet. Robots, a patrol of them, walking a slow perimeter around the core junction of the mine, and neither the miners nor the wanderers could get within 50 meters of it. Volkov's, Ilara said. Before we went any further, I want to lay out what the fight in this mine was actually about, because when I first heard it, I assumed it was about greed, and it was not. The first mining team found the seam. Biggest strike in 30 years. They kept it quiet, which was stupid, because you cannot hide a strike that size from people who live inside the same hole. The wanderers found out and came and asked for a share to keep quiet about it, which is extortion, and everybody involved knew it was extortion. But here's the part I had to be told twice. The wanderers were not thieves. The wanderers were the people whose minds the fragmentum had eaten. They had walked out of their homes with what they could carry and arrived here in a hole that already had exactly enough food in it for the people who were in it, and the city above had sealed the door 10 years earlier and did not know and would not have cared. So the miners had a seam that would keep the underworld alive for 231 days, and the wanderers had nothing, and somebody said the wrong thing about it, and now there were 4 men under a rockfall and a woman looking for a green coat. There was no villain in that mine. That was the whole problem. I would have found it much easier if there had been. The one from the Fight Club, June said. That is a long story. Ilara blew hair out of her face. That thing turned up right after the Silvermane Guard pulled out of the underworld. It is a robot. It calls itself the Guardian of Humanity. Every unclaimed machine down here obeys it. Now it holds the core junction and nobody is allowed near. A Guardian of Humanity, Anya said slowly, that commands machines. I have never heard of anything like that. There is a great deal down here that you have never heard of, my lady, Ilara said. It turns out your city builders are not omniscient after all. At the deepest point of the mine, on the lip of a cliff, in front of a vein of ore that came out of the rock wall like a frozen sunrise, there was a girl in a red dress. She was maybe 12. She was barefoot. She was standing on cold stone in a place where grown men wore 3 layers, and she did not appear to notice. Mr. Volkov, look, she was saying. Look at the size of it. Lily has never seen so much ore. The thing standing next to her was enormous. Iron plating, a heavy black coat over the shoulders, and 2 points of red light where a face should be, angled down at her with what I can only call patience. Calculating. At average extraction efficiency, this vein sustains Belobog's total energy demand for 231 days, plus or minus 7. But that is not why Lily called you here. No. Speak your real thought. The girl looked at her feet. So many people were hurt. Miners, wanderers, both sides. Can you help them? I have suppressed the conflict and taken control of the mine. Assessment. No further incident within 30 days. Large-scale armed conflict is not anticipated. Lily understands what Mr. Volkov means. Her voice got smaller and did not get less stubborn. But Lily thinks it is not enough. The mining team and the people at Wildfire still do not understand why Mr. Volkov does this. If we could only do a little more for everyone. My directive is preservation. The red lights did not change. In the underworld, the trust of a small sample is redundant to the calculation. Human behavior always deviates from the calculation, Lily. Then the red lights came up and found us. Their presence is proof of that. Volkov! Alara's scythe was already out. We are not finished from last time. Call your machines off right now, or I will not be gentle. Humans attempting to overturn a calculated outcome constitute a significant threat to Underworld's survival strategy. He looked at us for a long moment. Then he did the strangest thing I saw that entire day. He bowed, slightly from the waist, and offered the girl his arm. Come, Lily, an external variable has appeared. The calculation restarts. The core junction requires guarding. And he left a very large machine behind to occupy us, and it did not occupy us for long. Should we go after her? I said, watching a barefoot child walk into the dark, holding the hand of a war machine. The girl. Lily? Do not worry about her, Alara said. She follows him everywhere. Volkov will not hurt her. She was already turning away. The leader is what matters. We need to find Boris. No need to look everywhere for me, Alara. He came out of a side gallery with about 10 wildfire behind him, a heavy man with a heavy voice and the sort of face that has been broken and reset by professionals. He looked us over with no enthusiasm whatsoever. And who are these? We are with the Astral Express, I said. You are the leader. We have been waiting for you. Boris looked at Alara. Is she always like this? I have known her for 4 hours, and yes. We told him everything. The Stellaron, the Fragmentum, the Cold Wave, what we were here for. He listened all the way through, which by that point I had learned was not a given, and at the end of it he shook his head. Never heard of it. But if you want something that has been here a long time, there are exactly 2 things in this city old enough to remember. He held up a finger. One is Volkov. He is a machine that lived through the war. And the other? The other, Boris said, is the Supreme Guardian's office. And the current holder of that office is a fraud who bought this district with sweet words and, enough. Anya had gone white. I will not allow you to insult the Guardian in front of me. Boris looked at her for a long time, long enough that everybody else stopped moving. No, he said at last. I do not suppose you will. Boris settled the mine before he did anything else, and I watched him do it, and it was the least heroic thing in this whole story, and one of the 2 or 3 that I think about most. He did not make a speech. He got both sides into the same gallery, which took an hour, and then he said that the seam was going on the common register, which meant the first mining team lost the strike they had found. Then he said that the wanderers who had come at the team with weapons were off the ration list for a month, which meant the people who had lost their homes lost their food as well. Then he said that anybody who did not like either of those things could come and say so to him personally tonight, and he stood there and waited. 2 men came forward. He listened to both of them all the way to the end. He did not change anything. That is not fair, I said to Alara afterward. No, both sides lose. Yes, that is the point. She was watching Boris walk away with his hands behind his back. If one side wins, the other side comes back next month with more people. If they both lose the same amount, they both hate Wildfire instead of each other, and Wildfire can take it. Ilara shrugged. He has been doing that for 11 years. It is why we still have a district. That night, Wildfire put us up in the best hotel in the underworld, which was called the Goethe Hotel, because of course it was, because there is one on each tier and both of them are the same brand, and I have never received a satisfying explanation. We are not going to move in here, June said, and come out tomorrow as wanted criminals again, are we? If you are worried, Ren Chang said, somebody should take a watch. A watch. A night watch. Like an adventuring party in a fantasy novel? June's eyes went enormous. And then she yawned theatrically. Ah, suddenly. So tired. June, you seem full of energy. No, absolutely not. Do you have any idea what staying up does to your skin? I will take the watch, Anya said from behind us. None of us had heard her come in. She had spent 2 hours talking to Boris, and she had the face of somebody who had lost an argument she had not been allowed to have out loud. If you trust me, she added. I woke at some hour in the dead middle of the night, and it was the dream again, and this time it was worse. Yulia was alone in the Guardian's chair in the dark. Her hair was down and disordered. She was shaking, holding on to the arms of the chair like somebody riding out a wave of pain, and the thing under her voice was murmuring. I have lost her, she said. My wish. Your plan. What was any of it for? Set down your despondency. Abandon sorrow. Abandon useless feeling. Shut up. A cup came off the desk and broke on the floor. She is my daughter. She is my only. What would you know, you soulless thing? You will never understand. Never. And the murmur said kindly, in the tone you use with a child, you have not lost her. She is waiting for you on the other side. Rise, Guardian. Fulfill your purpose. Fulfill the wish of a mother. I got up and went outside because I did not want to be in a room with my own chest. Who is there? Anya spun and then let the spear down. Oh, it is you. You cannot sleep either. I cannot sleep unless I have done 8 hours of work in a day. You need supervision, Anya said. We sat on the steps. She talked for a while. She did not entirely mean to. It came out the way things come out at 3 in the morning to somebody who is leaving in a week. She did not believe a word of our Stellaron story. She said so twice. Then she said that her mother had welcomed us as saviors and ordered our arrest 4 hours later. Then that Boris had told her things about the tier under her feet that she had gone and checked and could not disprove. Then that she had believed her whole life that a soldier's duty was to hold the line, and that she was starting to be unable to locate the line. Perhaps, she said finally to the ground, Mother made the wrong decision. Why do you not do it? I said. Do what? Be the supreme guardian. I have rarely seen anybody physically recoil from a sentence. Her hands came up like she was pushing a plate away. No, that thought is monstrous. Absolutely not. It is impossible. I only want… She stopped and started again, quieter. I only want the people of Belobog to have a better life. That is all I have ever wanted. She sat with that for a while and did not manage to make it come out to anything, and then she asked if I would walk with her, and we went out into Rocktown at 4 in the morning, and that is how we ran into Alara and Svetlana standing under a dead streetlight having an argument about medicine. Were you two not resting? Alara said. What are you doing out here? You have not been up to something. I came out for a walk because I could not sleep, Anya said, hand on her hip. Withdraw your baseless accusation. Alara, Svetlana said, they might be able to help. And to us, mildly, she is stubborn and soft-hearted. She does not mean it. The supplies were the problem. Too many wounded from the mine and not enough of anything, and there was a stockpile of medical alcohol and bandages left behind in Rivet Town, which was a place the Fragmentum had taken years ago and which people no longer said the name of casually. Alara was going alone. I am coming, Anya said. I have not agreed to that. Lives are involved. An extra pair of hands does not hurt, and I have a great deal of practical experience with the Fragmentum, so I will be useful. Alara's mouth opened and closed. Fine, she said. Do not slow me down. And put her hands on her hips and made a noise of contempt so loud you could have heard it in the other hotel. Rivet Town is what Rocktown will be. That is the thought I could not get out of my head the entire time we were in it. It had the same chandeliers and the same yellow ore and the same crooked houses, except that the Fragmentum had come through, and there were no people, and everything anybody owned was still exactly where they had left it. Market stalls with the goods still out, a kettle on a stove, a shop with the shutters half down, caught in the middle of closing. Alara knew the way without thinking about it, which told me something before she said anything. She stopped on a steel bridge over the middle of town and looked up at a building on the hill, and her face did a thing I had not seen it do, which was soften. Over there, that is the orphanage Svetlana used to run. Uncle Boris found me and put me in it. I spent most of my childhood up there. She stayed looking at it. Svetlana said a rich man donated the building. Whatever else he did with his life, he must have been a good person. Do you miss it? Anya said. Those days? Yes, constantly. I glanced sideways, and Anya was not looking at the orphanage the way you look at a stranger's childhood. She was looking at it the way you look at a word you cannot quite read. That place, she said, feels familiar. We found the supply crates and they were empty, not smashed, not scattered, opened, emptied, and closed again, which is the wrong thing for a monster to do. Fragmentum creatures do not want bandages, and they do not tidy up afterward. There were footprints. We followed them for about 10 minutes and cornered a thief who came up to Alara's waist. His name was Eric. He was maybe 9. He was carrying a sack twice his size, and the instant we blocked the alley, he went hard and spiky like something you should not pick up. You cannot have it. I found it. Finders keepers. You little… Alara started. 200 Winter City coins, Eric said. For all of it. That is the price, and I will not go lower. You are looting a disaster zone and negotiating with the people who came to save it. 200. Alara actually laughed, and it was not a nice one, and she opened her mouth to take him apart. Enough! Anya put a hand on her arm. Alara, stop talking. And then she went down on one knee in the dirt in front of a 9-year-old thief. She unclipped something from her belt. A medal. Silver, with a chip of blue stone set in the middle of it, and I watched the light move in the stone and understood, without being told, that this was not a decoration. This was awarded to me by the city builders, she said. Do you see the blue stone in the center? That is crystallized geomero. It is the purest grade there is. Eric stopped breathing. You need money because of your family, is that right? He nodded once, furiously, with his chin down. Anya reached out and wiped his face with her thumb. Then take it, and go and get your father treated. I want to point out what actually happened in that alley because it goes past being a nice moment. Anya Croft had spent 2 days being told by everybody in the underworld that she was a symbol of everything wrong with the tier above them. She had defended herself with speeches. The speeches had not worked. Here she stopped speaking and gave away the one object that proved she belonged upstairs. Ilara did not say anything, but she did not look at Anya the same way again after that, and she stopped saying my lady like it was a knife. Eric handed over every scrap of supply he had taken and then, unprompted, told us exactly where the bad monsters were in Rivet Town, which saved us probably 2 hours and possibly a leg. The medical alcohol was in the orphanage. We went up the hill in the dark with our lights off because Eric had told us what patrolled the road. Inside, the building was intact in the way abandoned buildings are, which is to say every object was in its place and every object was wrong. Small chairs, a row of hooks at child height, chalk on a board, still legible, in a hand that belonged to a person who had grown up and left and probably died. Anya slowed down about 4 steps in. Then she stopped. What is it? Ilara said. Nothing. Anya's voice was not right. It is nothing. Ilara found the crate we came for, and next to it, on a shelf, a small white handicraft. A folded paper thing, the sort a child makes, gone yellow. She picked it up without much interest and turned around holding it, and Anya saw it, and every single thing on her face fell off at once. She crossed the room and took it out of Ilara's hands. This, she said. This is mine. This is from when I was small. What? I lived here. Anya's hands were shaking around a piece of folded paper. Before the city builders came for me, before Lady Yulia adopted me, I lived here. She looked up. I am from the underworld. Nobody said anything for a while. Somewhere below us, the town creaked. The 2 of them had grown up in the same building. 2 girls in the same row of small beds under the same leaking roof. One of them got picked up by a rich family from a city that would later seal the door on the other one. Neither of them had ever known, and they had spent the last 2 days trying to draw blood. Anya's eyes went red, and she looked away and looked down at the ruined district below the window, and when she spoke, it came out in pieces. Since I became Lady Yulia's daughter, I have had no other identity, and I have never once been worth it. I watched Silvermane's soldiers die in the Fragmentum every single day, and not one time could I change my mother's mind. I knew the underworld was suffering. I knew. I could not do anything about it. My own home turned into this, and I was kept in the dark about all of it. She pressed the heel of her hand against her eyes. In the end, I cannot protect anything. Why was I the one chosen? How could I possibly be qualified? All that sniveling is very loud. Ilara had not moved from where she was standing. What? Anya said. You heard me. Ilara's voice came out flat and hard, and it was the cruelest kindness I have ever watched one person do to another. What did you expect? That I would feel sorry for you? 4 sentences of self-pity and I fold? You think it is a hardship sitting in the palace and imagining things and going to the front and risking your life? She stepped in. The people down here barely eat. Staying alive is considered a good week, and you are standing in my orphanage crying about qualifications. Ilara, even if you are only a sliver of light, you should still light something up. Ilara's jaw was set. That is your line. You said it. You wrote it, and you said it out loud, and I have heard people repeat it down here who have never met you. Anya went very still. You want to protect everyone, so instead of standing there wailing, is there not something more important you should be doing? I have thought about that exchange for a long time. Ilara could have hugged her. Everybody in the room, including me, wanted somebody to hug her, and Ilara looked at a person who was drowning in the question of whether she deserved to be saved and refused to answer the question and handed her a job instead. We got the crate down the hill and out of Rivet Town and back to Svetlana's clinic before dawn, and the alcohol went into people who needed it that morning. And then Wildfire went to war with a robot because there was still a machine sitting on the core junction of the only working mine in the world. I would like to tell you that we found a clever way around Volkov. We did not. We went in 5 against 1, and it was the hardest fight I had been in since I came out of that pod, and it was hard for a reason I did not expect. He was not fast. He did not have to be. He never moved further than he needed to, and he never moved sooner than he needed to, and he did not miss. That is the thing about fighting a calculation. Everything I had fought up to then had been trying to kill me. Volkov was not trying to kill anybody. Volkov was maintaining a perimeter, and every single thing he did was the cheapest available solution to the problem of us being inside it, and the cheapest available solution turned out to be terrifying. He put 2 machines in the mouth of the gallery so that we could not spread out. When Ilara went over them, he did not chase her, because chasing is expensive. He simply turned 90 degrees and stood where she was going to land. Recalculating, he said, in exactly the same voice, with a scythe coming down on his shoulder. Probability of underworld structural collapse without the core junction, 94%. Nobody asked, Ilara shouted. Probability that these 5 individuals can hold this position after I am destroyed, 11%. Nobody asked. Svetlana threw a barrier over her that should not have held and did. I have no idea what a village doctor is doing with that, and she has never explained it, and I have stopped asking. Miko turned up, which nobody had requested and everybody was glad about. He did not fight. What he did was put smoke into 4 places from 4 directions in a sequence, and for 11 full seconds, an ancient war machine allocated its attention to 4 Sampos who did not exist. I will admit, those 11 seconds mattered. I will also note that he was gone before it worked out the trick, because he is not stupid. June pinned the left leg to the floor with a lance of ice as thick as a man. Ren Chang put his spear into the joint above it and turned it. And I got both hands on the bat and hit an ancient war machine as hard as I have ever hit anything, and the plating came away from the frame, and it went down on one knee, and the red lights guttered and came back dim. I lifted the bat. Stop! She came out of nowhere and put herself between me and him, barefoot, in the red dress, arms out, in front of a machine the size of a truck. Please, Lily said. Please do not. He is not bad. He is not. Everything he did it for… Lily. Move. No. Lily. My combat capability is at 31%. The calculated outcome of you remaining is your death. Then the calculation is wrong, Lily said. I put the bat down. I want to be very clear that I did not put it down because I am a good person. I put it down because a 12-year-old had just told a supercomputer that its numbers were wrong, and I wanted to see what it would say. Volkov was quiet for a long time. Recalculating, he said. And then he stood up and did not attack and turned his head to look at all of us and said the thing that broke this city open. You are searching for the origin of the cold wave. Yes, Ren Chang said. Then I will show you. I have held the record for 700 years because there was no one I was willing to give it to. The red lights swept across Anya and stopped. The account you were taught is not the account that happened. He opened the archive. And the light came up out of the floor of that mine and showed us Belobog on the day it ended. The Legion came. That part was true. The sky over the planet filled up with them, and the surface burned, and every word Conrad had recited in that wooden schoolroom voice about scorched earth and rolling smoke was accurate. Then the record showed us a woman standing in a control room in Aegis Fortress with her hand on a switch, Katya Croft, Supreme Guardian, and in front of her, held in a cradle of machinery, a thing I recognized immediately because I had one in my chest. The Stellaron did not fall on this world during the invasion, Volkov said. It was already here. It had been in the possession of the city builders for a considerable time. It was studied, it was contained, and when the Legion could not be stopped by any conventional means, the Supreme Guardian of Belobog made a decision. She threw the switch. The cold wave came out of the ground. It buried the Antimatter Legion. It buried the invasion. It buried the seas and the forests and every other city on the planet and every person in them. And it did not stop when the Legion was gone, because that is not what those things do. The cold wave was not a miracle, Volkov said into total silence. It was a weapon. It was fired by this city, at this planet, by the people this city was taught to worship. Humanity did not survive the cold wave. Humanity caused it, and then survived it, and then wrote it down as a rescue. Nobody in that mine made a sound. I looked at Anya Croft, who was standing in the light of a 700-year-old recording, watching a woman with her own surname end the world to save one city. Anya and Alara stood on the railing over Rivet Town afterward and did not talk about any of it for a long time. Then Anya said, I have heard from Silvermane veterans that before the quarantine order, there was almost no difference between the tiers. The same food, the same conversations, the same holidays. Our upbringings were different, but the joys and the griefs and the way people are bound to each other, those are the same in both places. I am certain of that. She was looking out at the dead town. If a bridge could connect the tiers again, she said, we could go back to being one city, standing shoulder to shoulder against the cold and the fragmentum, together. Alara turned her head slightly so that Anya could not see her face. I am not good at profound truths like you are, she said. But, and she put her hand out, just held it out, in the air, over a ruined town where they had both been children. If that is the future you want to see, I will build the bridge with you. Anya took her hand immediately, both hands, and Alara lost about 4 centimeters of height in surprise. Thank you, Alara. Your trust means a great deal to me. I looked in the other direction and studied a wall with tremendous interest. The next morning, Anya was gone. She had left in the dark, alone, on foot, back up to the overworld to look her mother in the face and ask her a question, and she had left a letter with Alara in case she did not come back. The letter said, if anything happens to me, go to the Landau siblings, Lynx and Conrad. Lynx, June said. Wait, Lynx, from the machine shop? She is Conrad's sister? Or Conrad is Lynx's brother, I said. That is the same information. It is a different emphasis. Alara had gone very quiet. She told me she had thought it through, she said. She said as a daughter and as a soldier, she had a responsibility to say it to her face. I told her that arguing was pointless because she had already decided. Her hand closed on the railing, and I told her that if she got into trouble, I would come for her and I would not care what it cost. And what did she say? She said, "Then I will be waiting." Anya walked into her mother's office at Aegis Fortress and said, "Mother, I am back." And Yulia came out of her chair. I have to tell this part straight, because it is the part that decides everything, and because it would be much easier to write it as a monster in a chair. Yulia Croft looked terrible. She had not slept, and the moment she saw her daughter in the doorway, every light in her face came back on at once. "Anya, I thought I had lost you." Her voice was not steady. "Where were you? Are you hurt? I will call for the physician immediately." No, please. I do not want to see anyone right now. I am sorry, mother." And Anya, who had walked up 2 tiers of a city with a speech in her mouth, felt her mother's hands on her arms and felt the entire speech come apart and thought with real hope that maybe this was all a misunderstanding. "I am fine," she said. "I am well. I ran around a great deal in the underworld. There were a few fights. I managed." The underworld. The temperature in the room changed. "Then report what you saw," Yulia said. "Commander Anya." And that was the moment. That was the exact second. A woman who had been shaking with relief 8 words earlier reached over and turned herself off and put an office between herself and her own child, and the child noticed. Anya reported. All of it. And at the end of it she put her hand flat on her chest, which is what she does when she is about to say something she will not be able to take back. "Lady Yulia, on my honor, those visitors are not the villains we imagined. I watched them draw weapons for other people's sake. I watched them risk their lives for someone else's ideals. They came for the Stellaron to end the disaster it has brought on Belobog. I am certain." Yulia said nothing. "Mother, you have always known what the Stellaron is, have you not?" Anya's voice was very careful. "One day I will be told as well. Bearing those secrets forever is one of the prices of being guardian. So forgive my offense, but I believe the order to destroy the outsiders was the wrong one. The city builders may have been waiting centuries for someone who can solve this, and they are. That is enough." Anya stopped. "Arrogance," Yulia said. "Ignorance. You have disappointed me, Anya. You have seen the tip of the mountain, and you believe you have seen the mountain. You got some mud splashed on you downstairs, and now you presume to question my orders." There was a pause, exactly long enough for a person to decide the rest of their life. "Silvermane Guard, take Commander Anya into—" "They are not scum." Anya said it into her mother's face, and her voice did not shake. "My past. The things you never told me. I remember all of it now. I am not running away again, Guardian. Stop putting me off with vague words and tell me what you saw. What are you hiding? Why do you send Silvermane's soldiers into the Fragmentum to die? Why did you abandon the underworld? And why, at the exact moment it mattered, did you change your mind?" The silence went on for a long time. "I see," Yulia said, and let out a breath that had been in her for years. "This was always going to come. I did not expect it so soon." She came down from the dais. "Then walk with me, Anya. This dying world, it is time you heard its voice." And as she passed her daughter, the murmuring started, and Anya went down on one knee with both hands over her ears. Meanwhile, the 3 of us came up into the overworld through one of Miko's passages, and Miko evaporated the instant his boots touched the pavement. "Where did he—" "Gone," Ren Chang said. "Links first. Conrad is a senior officer. We cannot get near him, and if the letter does not move him, we walk into a cell." Lynx had us inside her shop in about 4 seconds flat. "What did you do?" she said, bolting the door. "They have pulled a whole detachment off the front line to patrol the city and hunt for you. The entire overworld is jumpy." June opened her mouth and Ren Chang got there first. "Anya said we can trust you completely." Lynx laughed at him. "Ah, meaning Anya trusts me, so you do not yet." "Correct. I like you." She pulled a chair around. "Sit down, all of you, and tell me the whole thing, because I have known Yulia Croft for a very long time, and I doubt any of it will surprise me." It surprised her. Here is what she told us in return, and it is the piece I had not seen coming. Lynx and Yulia were roommates once, 2 young women in the same rooms, before anybody was a guardian and anybody was a shopkeeper. Something happened, and they went in different directions, and one of them ended up running the city, and the other ended up fixing radiators for a living, and is not sorry about it. And Lynx had worked in the research department. Her job in the research department had been the Stellaron. "North," she said. "It is north of the city, out in the deep snowfield. I ran the survey myself, years ago before they closed my department. I can still find it." "The front line is between here and north," Ren Chang said. "Yes." Lynx was already pulling coats off a rack. So you will be my assistants, and I will be doing emergency maintenance on the power conduits, and every Silvermane on that line knows my face and owes me a favor, and none of them will look at you twice. That is a terrible plan, June said. It is a great plan. Put the coat on. Then somebody knocked on the door, and Lynx remembered, out loud, with real feeling, that her brother had said he might come by today. We went into the back room, all three of us. The door was thin. I stood in a machine shop with a bat in my hands for 11 of the longest minutes of my life, listening to a man ask his sister about pipe fittings for the front line. She chatted back about absolutely nothing, at a volume calibrated to cover the sound of Ren Chang breathing. He left. Lynx leaned on the door. Right, she said brightly. Coats. It worked all the way up the line. Lynx waved at people. People waved back. Somebody offered her tea. We got through 3 checkpoints as 3 anonymous assistants carrying somebody else's toolbox, and I started to think we might actually get out onto the snowfield without a fight. Then we reached the last post, and the captain there took one look and said, Lynx, you have never repaired a conduit in your life. You reroute them and let somebody else do the work. What are you doing on my line? His name was Reese, and I wanted on record that he was completely correct about everything and completely doomed. He would not move. Lynx tried 3 angles. He listened to all of them, and then he said the thing that I still think about, which was that a soldier's dignity is the only thing a soldier actually owns, and he was not going to sell his for a friend. Then he went for the alarm. I hit him. He got the alarm off first. He got it off with his hand already going numb, and the whole front line lit up behind us, and Captain Reese went down into the snow and slept like a baby, and I stood over him feeling nothing that I would call victory. He was right, I said. Yes, Lynx said, hauling me by the elbow. Run. Conrad was waiting for us at the last gate, and he was not happy. He had come up the line at a run, and he had come alone, and I want to point out that this is a man who had heard an alarm saying his own sister was escorting wanted criminals through a live front, and who had not brought anybody with him to see it. The argument happened in front of us in a blizzard with a war on. You brought them through my checkpoints. Yes. You used my name at 2 of them. I used my name, Lynx said. Which happens to be your name as well. That is not my fault, and it never has been. Lynx. His voice did not rise. That is the thing about Conrad Richter. His voice does not rise, and so when something goes wrong inside him, you have to watch his hands. Do you understand what you have done? There is a procedure for this. There is a procedure for exactly this. I know the procedure. I helped write half of it back when your guardian still let me in a building. Then you know I have to arrest you. I know that is what you think, Lynx said. And she did not move. That is the whole thing. She did not shout at him, and she did not explain herself, and she did not take one step backward, and I watched a younger brother wait for a pattern that had held his entire life to hold one more time, and it did not. Captain Reese is unconscious, Conrad said quietly. He will be fine. She hit him very carefully. I did, I said. I have hit a lot of things this week, and he got the good one. Conrad looked at me for a long moment, and then he set his feet. So we fought him. I want to be honest about the shape of this fight, because it is not the shape you expect. Conrad Richter does not hit hard. Conrad Richter is not fast. Conrad Richter puts up a shield, and then another shield, and then another one, and he puts them over his own men first and himself second, and the wall does not come down. 5 of us. Ilara, who moves faster than the eye tracks. Ren Chang, who does not waste emotion. June, who is a better shot than anybody I have met since. Lynx, who turned out to be carrying a guitar and to have opinions about electricity. And me, with a bat, hitting a man as hard as I have ever hit anything. He held. At one point, I remember thinking, with genuine outrage, that the Doomsday Beast had been made of paper compared to this. His soldiers went down around him and he kept standing, and eventually numbers are numbers, and even a wall gets tired, and he started to slow, and we all stopped at more or less the same moment. Everybody bent over their knees in the snow, breathing like bellows. That is when we remembered the letter. He read it, standing up, in the wind, and I watched his eyes go wide, and Lynx did not say a single word while he did it. When he finished, she said very quietly, I have said everything I have to say, little brother. What you do now is your business. I am garrison commander of the Silvermane Guard, Conrad said. It is my duty to carry out the orders of the Supreme Guardian. I looked at the bat in my hand, then at him. Do you want to think about that a bit longer? However, he folded the letter and put it inside his coat. Commander Anya is the acting commander of the front line. And by regulation, when a frontline commander's orders conflict with instructions from the rear, the correct procedure is to await further clarification. He stepped out of the road. I have met a lot of people who broke a rule to do the right thing. Conrad Richter is the only person I have ever met who found the right thing hiding inside a rule and then followed the rule so precisely that nobody could ever punish him for it. To go north, he said, you have to cross a fully corroded district and come out on the snowfield beyond. The guard can hold the next wave off for a while. Then Lynx unslung her guitar and said she was staying. What? June said. But the Stellaron, you are the only one who knows where it is. You have the direction, and I have watched my idiot brother fight a 5-on-1 and lose, which was my fault, and if I leave now, the next wave goes through him. Lynx was already checking her amp. Besides, I have wanted to see that thing my whole professional life. I really have. She smiled at us, and it did not quite work. Go on, get it before Yulia knows you are coming. It cost Lynx something to stay behind, and I want that on the record. She stood there in the snow with her guitar over her shoulder, cheerfully telling us to go, and she had spent the last hour explaining to us in detail what a Stellaron looked like on a survey plot. She had been in the research department. It had been her department. Yulia had put a Silvermane guard on her door and sealed her lab and told her she was tired, and Lynx Richter had gone away and opened a machine shop and fixed radiators for over a decade and never once said the word out loud to her own brother, and she was going to be about 400 meters from the thing she had spent her career trying to find, and she was going to be facing the wrong way the entire time. Go on, she said. Get it before Yulia knows you are coming. You could come and we could… June. Lynx was already tuning something that did not need tuning. If I go, my idiot brother holds this line by himself, having just fought a 5-on-1 and lost. Do you want to be the one who explains that to our mother? She grinned, and it did not reach anywhere. I really did want to see it though, she said to nobody when we were already walking. We went through the corroded district, and about 10 minutes in, June stopped dead. There was an ice spear stuck in the ground. That is hers, Alara said. That is Anya's. And then, further up, standing in front of a corridor, we saw them. Yulia and Anya, walking, in profile, going through the main gate. We ran, and they did not get further away, and they did not get closer, and after about 4 seconds I understood that we were not looking at people. The Fragmentum records. That is the only way I can put it. It had gone soft enough around here that it had started keeping copies, and it kept playing them back, and every time we came around a corner there they were again. Mother and daughter walking north through a broken world, having a conversation that had already happened. I do not understand, the copy of Anya said. You say every guardian for centuries has resisted the Stellaron's call. Were they all wrong, Mother? There is no right and wrong here. There is only human arrogance and short-sightedness. Our ancestors burned their lives to keep this civilization going and then went quiet. They spent whole lifetimes writing hymns to human courage and never once spared a moment to look up. But Aegis of Preservation. Is he not one of the great things you speak of? Has it not always been his power protecting Belobog? And the copy of Yulia laughed, and it was the ugliest sound I heard in that city. Preservation? Has preservation ever once looked a human being in the eye? That is a delusion the city builders sold themselves. You will hear a magnificent voice soon, Anya. Then you will understand my choice. We walked north through a dead district listening to a woman argue against a god, and I had a thing in my chest that kept trying to agree with her. Ren Chang noticed. Your dream, he said. The one you had at the hotel. Try to recall it now, deliberately. Why? Because there is a Stellaron ahead of us and a Stellaron inside you, and I want to know whether they resonate. I did not enjoy this experiment. I stopped in the snow and pulled up the dream on purpose, and the murmuring came in immediately, on time, like something that had been waiting by the door. Yulia. The threat is gradual. It must be eradicated. It must be. Completely. Well, I said when I could talk. Good news. They resonate. And it just told her we are here. The last recording was different. The others had been sealed inside their own moment, playing to nobody. This one stood in the middle of the path with its back to us, and when we came around the corner, it turned around. Intruders, it said. Must not approach. Get back, Alara shouted. June, move. The thing that came out of the copy of Yulia was not a memory. It fought like her, with a spear of ice, and it was fast, and everything the spear touched came back cold and stayed cold. I had met that woman 4 days earlier in a warm office, and she had been the most composed person in the room. There was nothing composed left in the copy. Somebody had taken the elegance off it, and what was underneath was murder in a straight line. Alara cut it in half. I want to say that with the full weight it deserves, because Alara had spent the whole trip being the fastest person in the room, and had not yet needed to prove why. She went past it in a blue line, and the thing came apart into black smoke and blew away. Nobody said anything. We looked up at the last flight of stairs. Wherever that goes, June said, this is the end of it. I looked at Alara. She was staring at the steps with an expression I could not read, and later she told me what it was. She said she had expected to be frightened, and she was not, and that not being frightened felt more unreal than anything else that had happened. She said it was because of us. She said that with the 4 of us on the same staircase, she could not locate a single problem up there that seemed impossible. I have thought about that a lot. I had known her for 2 days. We pushed the gate and came out onto Everwinter Hill. The cold up there is a different animal. Down in the city the cold is weather. On Everwinter, it is a policy. So cold, June said through her teeth, and June 15th does not feel cold. The trailblaze is not enough to keep up with this. Then we are close, Ren Chang said. We are approaching the center of the cold wave. The whole ridge was full of statues. That is what I thought they were. Then I got close to one, and it was an Antimatter Legion soldier standing upright, mid-stride, sealed inside clear ice like something in amber. There were hundreds of them. There were hundreds of them all the way up the slope in the exact positions they had been in when the sky fell on them, an entire invasion force still marching, 700 years into a war nobody had told them was over. June leaned in to look at one. Are the things in these still alive? I wrote 3 words in the snow behind her. There, I said. We will call this one July 3rd. She scrubbed it out with her boot and glared at me with such force that I felt it through 2 coats. How can you possibly be joking at a time like… Look, Alara said. Up at the top of the ridge, coming out of the ice, there was a hand, a mechanical hand, and I mean the scale of a building. Fingers laid across the crest of the hill like something enormous had reached up out of the planet and then stopped. The city builders had left it there, and there was nobody alive who knew how to build another one, and there was nobody alive who knew how to switch it off. If Yulia uses Anya against us, June said quietly, halfway up the last path, then we get her back. Alara did not slow down. The underworld needs her. No. The world needs her. At the top, there was a platform, and on the platform was the machine with a diamond-shaped housing at its peak, and something inside the housing was glowing a sick yellow, and in front of it stood Yulia Croft, with her hand on the back of her daughter's neck. Anya was on her knees with both hands pressed to her head. No, she was saying. No, do not resist. Yulia's voice was gentle. That is the part I cannot get out of my head. It was the voice you use on a child with a fever. Anya, accept our shared will. Look at the future they are offering. A world with no poverty, no cold, no suffering. A world where people do not have to beg for the right to stay alive like prisoners. A world we can protect forever. She was crying. She was standing in the snow at the top of a dead world with her hand on her daughter's head, telling her about a place where nobody would ever be cold again, and she was crying, and she meant every single word. 700 years we have tried, 700 years of struggling and believing that the brilliance of humanity would carry us back. And what came of it? A total defeat. Her voice was rising like the end of an area. Why is it that when we meet a force we cannot resist, our first instinct is always to fight it and cover our ears, instead of listening to what it wants? That is the cowardice buried in human nature. Throw it away. Break the chains. The Stellaron will lead humanity to evolve. It will. That is enough out of you, witch. Alara walked past me and put herself between Yulia and her daughter. Anya, I do not know what happened between you two down there, and if you explained it to me right now, I would probably not follow a word of it. Alara did not turn around. But there are 2 things I am absolutely clear on. Anya was still on her knees. 1. These people went through hell to get up here, and all they want is to shut that thing off. Alara's voice went hard. 2. Do you remember what I said to you? If anything happened to you, I would come. Alara, so do you understand? Even if that woman has scrubbed your head out and you have completely forgotten our agreement, I am still going to knock you unconscious and carry you home. Anya's eyes went wide, and something in them steadied. Is that enough? Yulia said. She had not moved. I have given you time to say goodbye. She looked down at her daughter, and the coldness came off her face, and what was underneath was so much worse. Anya, I have gone over and over how to tell you all of this. The tomorrow I have been promised is coming. But if you are not standing beside me to see the new world, then I will be in agony, unbearable agony. She swallowed. Perhaps I should thank these outsiders. The pressure they brought is what finally made me face my last weakness. She held out her hand. From the day you were small, I have never once forced you to obey me. You have always had a choice. You had one then, and you have one now. The wind pulled at everything on that platform. Make your choice, daughter. Anya took a long breath and opened her eyes, and her face was completely calm. Lady Yulia, thank you for raising me. Thank you for leaving me the right to choose. A pause. But I am sorry, mother. This is the last time I will not be able to stand beside you. Yulia closed her eyes. You said the deepest thing in human nature is foolishness and cowardice, Anya said. Perhaps that is true. A desperate situation shows you the darkest part of a person. But you missed the ones who kept struggling and fighting inside that desperate situation. I saw them. I saw them at the front line in the restricted zone. I saw them in the underworld. I saw them in every corner you decided not to look at. Her voice rose and did not shake. Our ancestors built this city with their hands. They carried a civilization through the wind and the snow. And if this world truly is going to end, then the road to that ending should be laid by human beings, not handed to that thing. She lifted her chin. We are guardians chosen by ordinary people, Mother. Our duty is to keep the world that people built. We are not gods. We are not judges. You want to grind humanity under your heel and be the god and the judge at the same time, and I will not allow it. The last of the warmth went out of Yulia's eyes, and the snow took it. I see, she said. So this is your choice. Very well, Anya. She looked up and she sounded relieved, and that is what made it unbearable. A pity. It is a pity that you will not get to see the beautiful world. You could not break the shackles on your own mind. Do you know what you should have been? Her voice cracked once on the last word. You should have been the mother of the new world, and the ground came apart. There is no new without breaking the old. As Supreme Guardian, I command you, rise, creation engine. The hill stood up. I do not have a better way to say it. The mechanical hand I had seen from below came out of the ice, and it kept coming, and behind the hand there was an arm, and behind the arm there was a machine the size of a mountain range, hauling itself out of a 700-year grave, with a noise like a war ending. Snow the size of buildings came off its shoulders. Yulia rose into the air in front of it with an ice spear in her hand, and she looked exactly like what she thought she was. That is a robot 10,000 times bigger than Volkov, June said, in a very small voice. Engine. Crush them. Light gathered above the machine's head, and then a red beam came out of it and went across the horizon, and a mountain range about 40 kilometers away stopped being a mountain range. Then the beam swung back toward us, unhurried, like a hand sweeping crumbs off a table. We ran. The ground where we had been standing turned to glass. Anya was firing at it, and I want the record to show that she knew perfectly well her rifle was doing nothing, and she kept firing anyway, because the alternative was standing still. And then something came down out of the sky and went through the creation engine's left hand. A line of red light from orbit, dead accurate. Himeko! June screamed. Hello? Can you hear me? The signal is terrible up here. Akari's voice breaking up in my ear, absolutely delighted with herself. What? Mr. Yang and I have been thinking about you the entire time. What a marvelous trailblaze this has been. Akari, I have no idea how that thing started moving, and I would love to hear about it later, but I can keep it still for a bit. The rest is yours. I looked at Anya. Anya looked at me. I ran at the arm of a machine the size of a mountain and started climbing it. Everything after that is in pieces, so I will give it to you in pieces. The arm of the creation engine is not a surface, it is a landscape. It has plating the size of city blocks, and gaps between the plating that you could lose a house in. Where the plating has failed, there are cables as thick as trees, and the whole thing is moving. Every time it moves, the angle of the ground under you changes by 20 degrees without warning. Things lived in the gaps. Of course they did. The fragmentum had been sitting on this hill for centuries, and the machine had been sitting in the fragmentum, and there were things down between the plates that had never seen anything alive before, and were extremely interested. Anya put down every fragmentum thing that came at me on the way up, calmly, one after another, with a rifle she had already proved was useless against the big target, and was extremely useful against the small ones. The engine stood up while I was on it, and the arm went vertical, and I came off it. A blue line caught me. Elara had my hand, and we spun, and she used the whole rotation to throw me, which took a kind of trust I had not earned. I still came up short. Ren Chiang's spear was under my feet. He had thrown it, from the ground, into a specific point in empty air where a person was going to be in 1 second, and it was there, and I hit it with both boots and swung and landed on the top platform, and Yulia was waiting. The wind wrapped around her like a cocoon, and when it cleared, she was not a person anymore. Ice over every surface, a crown of spikes, 4 spears turning slowly around her in the air, and where her face should have been, there was nothing readable at all. Listen, she said, and her voice was shaking with joy. This power, it is surging, it is singing. What the Stellaron promised me is the only hope this world has. 700 years ago, it drove out the Antimatter Legion. Today, it erases you. I raised the bat. I want you to know that I did think about saying something. I had material. But I had been listening to this woman monologue for 2 days, first through a wall, then through a dream, then through a series of ghosts, and I had reached my limit. So I just went for her head. Humans, she said, sounding almost bored, are always weak and always foolish and always overestimate themselves. I heard the shriek coming before I saw it. The whole sky above the platform filled up with ice, thousands of shards of it hanging there and then falling all at once like a swarm, and I got maybe 4 of them with the bat, and then she put her hands together and a lance went through my chest. Everything went slow. I remember being surprised at how light it felt. I remember my feet leaving the platform. I remember with total clarity thinking that Yulia's smile had gone very quiet, and then I was falling, and then I was not falling because I was somewhere else. Stars, a spiral of them, turning around a core of gold light. Not again, I said out loud. Not this place again. Last time I had stood here, something had looked at me and I had wanted to stop existing. But the spiral was full of light this time, and as I walked toward it, the light kept condensing into people. Conrad, standing at attention in an office, reporting. The commercial district has fallen. Residents evacuated. They are in the outer city for now. The garrison lost 26 men. But I. Go on, Conrad. I am not certain the Silvermanes who died were still, and his voice went. It just went in the middle of the sentence in front of his commanding officer. I saw their bodies walking in the fragmentum. Guardian, what is happening there is not rational. It is close to madness. If this continues, I am well aware of the consequences, Conrad. Step back. And behind Yulia, in that same office, the murmur repeated it back to her in a delighted little sing-song. We are well aware of the consequences. I walked on, Lynx, younger, furious. What are you still hesitating for? This is what you have always wanted. Get out of the cage and look at your own city. What is left to lose? Everything our predecessors did, all the research they never finished, it can finally come to something in our lifetime. Give me one guard. Let me go and find the Stellaron and find a way to save our planet. Calm down, Lynx. Calm down? What are you? Silvermane guard, Miss Landau is tired. Take her home. Yulia's fists were closed so hard her arms were shaking. Seal her laboratory. Detain the research staff. They are conducting illegal research. Why have you become so cold, Yulia? And when the ghost of Lynx had gone, the ghost of Yulia stood alone in the empty room and said to nobody, Lynx Richter, you were the friend I valued most. And the murmur said gently, but there is no place for her in the promised world. I walked on. There were more. There are always more. At the end there was a small girl, and when she spoke it was not one voice. It was hundreds, laid over each other across 7 centuries, the will of every guardian Belobog ever had. The city is crying out, they said. The power of preservation is thinning. In the end, we could not defy the Stellaron. Yulia abandoned preservation, I said. Yes, and we have no right to blame her. For 700 years, the fragmentum has grown every second of every day. What we hand to our successors is not faith, and it is not wealth, it is boundless despair. The voices got quieter. To stand in the homeland you swore to preserve and watch it disappear year by year while something whispers to you the entire time. They did not finish that sentence. Even the strongest will bend eventually. This day was always coming. His protection was always going to leave us. I closed my eyes. I would like to tell you that I thought hard about the next thing I said. I did not. It came out of me the same way my own name had come out of me in a corridor 4 days earlier. Then let somebody else do the preserving. The voices stopped. You, they said, and it was the first time they had sounded surprised. A passerby. Somebody with no stake in any of this, insisting on carrying an entire world. I waited. Very well, the will of every guardian in history said, what is there left to lose? What is there left that we have not already tried? The spiral opened. Go and touch the amber light, Lyra, and let us see whether the preservation inside you is strong enough to draw his eye. There was a lance lying in the light, red and long and burning without being on fire. I put my hand on it, and somewhere unimaginably far away, something raised a hammer and brought it down, and the sound of it arrived as heat, and the shock threw me back 3 steps with my hand still closed on the shaft. So I took hold of it again, harder, and everything came at once. Alara with her hand out over a ruined town. Anya on one knee in the dirt in front of a 9-year-old thief, Conrad stepping out of the road because he had found the right thing hiding inside a regulation, Lynx saying go on, get it, and staying behind with her guitar, Svetlana on her knees on bare stone with 2 hands and 40 patients, Lily standing barefoot in front of a war machine saying then the calculation is wrong. A world with no hope in it and no future, and every single one of them still going to work in the morning. Fine, then let me be the hope. I have nothing else on. I roared, and I pulled the lance up out of the light, and a column of amber went into the sky, and out in the dark, something enormous and made of stone lifted its head, and light came up in its eyes. Aegis looked at me. The first time a god looked at me, I wanted to stop existing. This one was the sun. This one was warm. This one was the feeling of coming in out of the blizzard into Belobog, that exact feeling, 700 years of somebody choosing to keep the heating on, and it went through every world at once, and every person in all of them felt their hands get warm for about 4 seconds and did not know why. Then the hammer came down. I opened my eyes on the battlefield. There was no lance in my chest. There was a lance in my hand. I was falling into the open palm of the creation engine, and the creation engine caught me, and then it lowered me to the ground and set me down as gently as you would put down a cup. Lyra, June 15th was on me instantly. You are alive. You are alive, and what is that? What is that? Where did you get that? I did not have time to explain, and I did not particularly want to. I turned around and looked up at Yulia, and I have been told what my face was doing, and apparently it was not friendly. I lifted the flame lance and pointed it at her. That is impossible, Yulia said. The will of preservation has made its choice, Anya said quietly. No, this is impossible. You know nothing about the state of this world. You know nothing about the fate coming for it. Yes, mother, Anya said. And even if we are destined for the dark, we will hold each other's hands and walk into it ourselves. She glanced at Alara beside her, and her voice did not move at all. On our own feet. Yulia stopped talking. She threw everything she had left. The sky filled with ice again, and I put the lance up, and a red barrier came out of it and covered all of us, and the ice came down and turned to steam a meter above our heads. This shield is warm, June said, staring at it. It was. That is the part I have never been able to describe properly to anybody who was not standing under it. It was not a wall. It was warmth, in the shape of a wall, and when I closed my eyes, I could feel everybody I had met in that city, standing in the line with me and holding onto the same shaft. Flame lance, I said. Charge. I went at her like something fired out of a bow. The air turned over and came with me in a spiral, and what hit Yulia was a dragon made out of fire, and the top of Everwinter Hill lit up like a second sunrise. She got up out of it. Of course she did. She raised both hands and pulled the light out of the sky and made a rock out of it, a boulder the size of a district wrapped in gold, and dropped it on us like a falling star. I put the lance in the ground. This, I said, is the will of preservation. The shield went up and the world went white, and the noise did not stop for a long time. When the dust cleared, we were all standing there with our hair full of grit, and not one person was hurt, and the creation engine, which had been standing behind Yulia the whole time doing nothing because it had stopped being hers, closed its hand and hit her with it. The blizzard stopped. She got up. Even then, she got up, broken, with the ice cracking off her, and she pulled at the power one more time. The Stellaron is with me. You are nothing but the last twitch of a dying world. I will build the new one with my own hands. I hit her with the second charge, and this time she did not resist it. She stood there in the fire and let it come, and when the crystal shell shattered off her, she fell out of the air and landed on the snow as a woman in her 50s with no power left in her at all, and she could not get up. Anya moved. Alara caught her right hand and held it. No, Anya said, and she was not a commander anymore. She was somebody's kid. No, do not take her away. Yulia coughed and pushed herself up on one elbow, and I watched her face, and I watched her wake up. That is the only word for it. 2 days of certainty and 700 years of a promised world came off her all at once, and underneath it there was a woman on a hilltop who could see exactly what she had done. Her eyes went to the yellow light in the machine behind her, and then to her daughter, and she made her decision in under a second. The Stellaron, she said. It promises a future. It will devour everything. And she put her hand on it. The power came off the leash and went for the hill, and Yulia Croft pushed her palm down on it and held it there. The last thing she had was a barrier of preservation. She used it to wall her daughter out. Anya was screaming on the other side of it and hitting it, and Yulia did not say anything to her, not one word, because there was nothing to say that would not have been an excuse. She just pressed the Stellaron against her chest and held on. The light gathered and rose and got very bright, and there was a sound like something small breaking. And in the last of it, she looked at Anya and she smiled, and it was not a guardian's smile or a conqueror's smile. Then she was gone. The wind died, and the sky over Everwinter went gold. Anya stood looking up at it for a long time, not at us, at the aurora coming up over the ridge where the Stellaron had been, the first color anybody had seen in that sky in 700 years. Mother, she said, have you woken up from the dream? We left her alone and went and stood a little way off, which is what you do. So, June said. Her voice had nothing in it. She had run out. That is Trailblaze, is it? What about the Stellaron? Uncle Yang usually handles the… I have already called it in, Ren Chang said. Akari and Mr. Otto are coming for it. They will seal it. Great, great. So the crisis is over. This planet is fine now. Ren Chang looked at the snow, which was still coming down, and shook his head. The cold wave will not stop today. Once the Stellaron is sealed, it will ease off slowly. The fragmentum will stop expanding, but it will not disappear either. Jarilo 6 can come back to life. He paused. It will take a long time. Anya came over and thanked us and was completely composed, and it was awful. Do not push it, I said, and I did not make a joke, which for me is the equivalent of a moment of silence. I am all right. There is a great deal to do. She got her chin up. The whole city felt the creation engine. Everybody in Belobog knows something enormous happened up here. There will be questions, and there will have to be an official account, and I do not know how to make anyone accept the truth of it. So do not tell them the truth, I said. Anya stared at me. You mean cover one lie with another, but if I do that, then I am… Do it, Anya. Alara had not moved. Down there, we tell the children the same thing every single day. Tomorrow will be better. Everyone knows it is a lie. It is what lets them go to sleep. If this gets out, imagine it, Alara said. The Guardians turned out to be the ones who did it. Every Guardian for 7 centuries knew. If I heard that, I would not know what was left to trust or who was left to trust. Neither would anybody. Anya closed her eyes for a while. When she opened them, she was somebody else, and I watched it happen, and I have never been able to decide whether what I watched was a person growing up or a person being buried. Mother, she said, died for preservation. She was sacrificed for Belobog. She walked over to the empty housing where the Stellaron had been. She learned the secret of the Stellaron from travelers who came down from the sky. She knew that the first Supreme Guardian had failed to destroy it, and she chose to challenge a power far beyond anything a human being should face, and Supreme Guardian Yulia Croft gave her life and lifted the shadow that has been over this city for 700 years. She said it once, flat, to nobody, testing the weight of it. In the eyes of most people, my mother was a great guardian. If an image has to be preserved, then let the mistakes and the madness and the wickedness and the dream be preserved in my memory instead. Let me carry them. She turned around. I am going to inherit the office, so I have to give up my illusions about the truth. And then, to Alara, and this was the only time her voice moved, I am sorry, please keep this with me. Until the end of our lives. Of course I will, Alara said. I know what to do. We went down and told the underworld first. That was not a decision anybody debated. We came out of the cable shaft into Rocktown, and Svetlana was in the clinic doorway before we got 20 meters, and behind her was half the street because word moves faster down there than any of the machinery does. It is sealed, Alara said. Or it will be. The express people are up there doing it now. Svetlana put a hand on the doorframe. And the cold wave? Will ease, Ren Chang said. Slowly. And the fragmentum? Will stop growing. It will not go away. Somebody at the back of the crowd started crying, and it was not a sad noise, and about 4 other people immediately joined in with it. A miner I had helped drag out of a gallery 2 days earlier shook my hand and held onto it for slightly too long and could not think of anything to say, and eventually just nodded a great deal. Skipper wanted to know whether the Stellaron had been cool. I told her it had been an extremely large yellow rock. She was visibly disappointed, and I have felt guilty about it ever since. And Svetlana stood in her doorway with a district celebrating in front of her and did the arithmetic in her head that she was always doing and said to me quietly, under all of it, how long is slowly? I did not have a number. Then I will keep the clinic open, she said, and went back inside. On the way down, June finally asked, so, you appeared on the battlefield out of nowhere carrying an extremely cool weapon that nobody has ever seen before. It has been 4 hours. Talk. This is the second time I have died for you, June. Thank you? That is not an answer. She does not know either, Ren Chang said, arms crossed, not looking up. It has happened before, at Herta Space Station, against the Doomsday Beast. Remember Nanook's glance? June stopped walking. I did not say anything, because there was nothing I could say that was true, and also comforting, and I had decided somewhere on that hill that I was not going to start lying to her. They put Yulia Croft's funeral on the 3rd day, and I did not go, not out of principle. There were about 9,000 people in that square, and I did not have any business being in it, and I had a suspicion, which turned out to be correct, that Anya would have to stand up in front of all of them and be composed for an hour. I watched from the top of the steps. Conrad gave the address, in that same wooden schoolroom voice, and about halfway through it, he stopped being able to do the voice, and did the rest of it in his own, which was worse and better. They reopened the tiers 4 days later. The passenger cable car between the overworld and the underworld had been shut for over a decade. They cleaned it, tested it, and ran the first car up with Svetlana in it, and Skipper, and about 9 other members of the mole gang, and the 3 of us, because Svetlana said the children would behave better with strangers watching, and she was completely wrong about that. Skipper got to the top first, because Skipper gets everywhere first. She came out of the car at a dead run, stopped in the middle of the platform, and put her head all the way back. Wow. The rest of them piled up behind her and did exactly the same thing, 9 children with their heads tipped back and their hats falling off. This roof, Skipper shouted, is so big, and it is blue. Svetlana put a hand over her mouth. That is not a roof, Skipper, she said. That is the sky. I have been to a lot of places since. I have stood in front of things that rewrote what I thought was possible. That is still the best thing I have ever seen, and it was 9 kids in the wrong coats looking up. The square was full for the inauguration. All of it, both tiers, packed shoulder to shoulder for the first time in living memory. Anya Croft stood up in front of her whole city and told them the lie she had built, cleanly, not one stumble. They wept for her mother. Then they crowned her supreme guardian. I looked around at that square while she was talking. Conrad at attention with his jaw locked. Lynx on a crate at the back with her arms folded, wearing an expression I would not want to translate, Svetlana with the children, Alara standing where Anya could see her, and every single one of them believing a version of events that 4 people on that hill knew was false, and being genuinely, visibly better off for it. I still do not know what I think about that. I am not sure I am supposed to. We went up to Aegis Fortress afterward to say the thing that had to be said, which was that Gerilo 6 was not going to be fine for a very long time. Otto and Akari had sealed the Stellaron. The cold wave would ease. The fragmentum would stay. Nobody alive in that city would see the planet the way it was 1,000 years ago. I had braced for her to take it badly. I know, Anya said. You know? The Stellaron was never what gave this planet a future. She was standing at the window looking down at her city. People did that. They did it for 700 years with nothing to work with and no reason to expect anything. It is going to keep taking a long time, and that is all right. It is supposed to take a long time. She turned around, and there was something in her face I had not seen before, which was that she was not tired. We will be waiting for you, whenever you come back, even if it takes another 700 years. A very small smile. The children of Belobog will keep looking up. We are quite good at that now. Outside, June said. She said she would wait 700 years. Renqiang, what is the longest a human being has ever lived? Renqiang was quiet for slightly too long. There is no limit, he said, but at that point it stops being human. I looked at him. He did not elaborate. I did not push it, and I'm going to have to come back to that, because he said it like somebody reading his own file. I saw Miko one last time, and he did not see me. He was in an alley behind the hotel, alone, having an animated conversation with a television set that had been broken for years. Yes, no, it was extremely close, but old Miko had a brilliant thought. Hey, why do I need to be the main character? Let us just be the clowns in the masks. He was laughing. Turns out the Astral Express crowd is even more fun than advertised. Do you like it? Ha, it is a masterpiece. A pause, while a broken television did not say anything. No, I am not leaving yet. What? Penacony? He waved a hand. What is fun about a decadent place like that? The more a person's dignity shows up in their happiness, the more sophisticated the happiness. That is what is interesting. Another pause. All right, say hello to everybody at the tavern for me. And do not forget to tell them they are looking forward to old Miko's next show. I did not ask. There are things you learn to file, and I filed it, and the file has since become quite thick. We left the next morning without saying goodbye, because the alternative was saying goodbye. The last thing I heard in Belobog was through an open window in Aegis Fortress on the way past, and it was Alara's voice, raised. Priority? What is that supposed to mean? You do not think rebuilding the underworld is important enough? That is not what I said. We have limited resources available right now, so we have to replan. Resources. Planning. Why do you always throw those words at me? I stood under the window and grinned like an idiot for about 4 seconds, and then I went and got on my train. Pip-Pop checked us aboard with the clipboard he does not need. 3 passengers, Belobog, anything to declare. 1 baseball bat, I said, same one. You had 4 opportunities to upgrade that. I did. Noted, said Pip-Pop in the voice of somebody making an actual note. Akari made coffee. Otto turned a page. I took a juice. So here is where I was, 4 days after somebody put a bomb in my chest and told me to get up. I had a name I had picked out of the air. I had a weapon I had stolen from a museum and a lance made out of somebody's faith. I had a train and a rabbit who did paperwork and a girl with 2 cameras who had been pulled out of a block of ice with no name and had gone ahead and chosen one anyway. And I still had the Stellaron. That is the thing. That is what nobody puts on the poster. We shut down a Stellaron that had been eating a planet for 700 years, and the whole time I was doing it, the one inside me was awake and listening and enjoying itself. It cannot come out. Otto cannot promise he can put it back to sleep next time. And every time it has taken me somewhere, something enormous has looked at me. Twice now. The first one has a fire behind him and gold running out of his hands, and his followers set that planet on fire and buried an entire species in ice, and he opened his eyes in an empty white room and found me specifically. He has already noticed you. That is the part I keep coming back to. Not the fighting. Not the god who came when I called. The one that came when I did not. Somewhere out there is a woman called Petra who put this in me on purpose, who leaned over an unconscious stranger and said time to get up like she was doing me a favor, and who has still not told anybody why. I do not know what she wants. I do not know why me. I do not know what I was before the pod. But I know one thing, that the Guardians of Belobog worked out the hard way over 7 centuries, and it took me 4 days, so I would like some credit. When something that big looks at you, it is not the looking that kills you. It is waiting to find out what it wants.